Hey, what's happening? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Let There Be Talk. Today is June 22nd, a Monday, and this episode is brought to you by my mighty rock and roll sponsor, Earthquaker Devices. You play guitar, bass, keyboards, metal, jazz, country, fusion. I don't care what kind of music you play. You're going to need yourself a stomp box, a rock and roll guitar pedal. And what better pedal to have than Earthquaker Devices? These things are handmade boutique pedals right out of Ohio, Akron, Ohio to be exact, and fantastic sponsor for over a year. Kings of the rock and roll foot stomping pedals. Go on their website, earthquakerdevices.com. Check them on Twitter and Instagram. Get yourself a pedal. Call them up. Tell them I want a pedal. I heard about you guys on Let There Be Talk. And I want to get a pedal so I can be a rock star. I want the rock star pedal. Tell them that's what you want. You want a pedal that you can just stomp on and instantly become a rock star. That pedal will probably cost you blood, sweat, and tears, a few girlfriends, and a drug addiction. But later on, you'll be able to be a superstar in the rock and roll world. Day where I was out there with Chris D'Elia all weekend at the Improv. I want to thank everyone at the Improv. God, man, the people there are just fantastic. It's funny when you start working in the better clubs, the first thing I notice is the people that work in the better clubs are better people. You know, they treat you good. They're not all shitty. And the audiences are great. The sound systems are great. The lighting's great. The hotels are great. So, thank you, San Jose Improv, but mostly thank you to my good friend Chris D'Elia for bringing me out. The guy is fucking top-notch, first class, man. Funny as shit. If you've never seen Chris, check out his show, Undateable, and also check his new special on Netflix. It's out right now. You can see it. Also, want to give one big shout-out. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you saw the John Belushi painting that I brought home to the house. I've been wanting this painting for 2 years. It hung in the San Jose Improv, and the guy that works there, he painted it. Steve Mo, the Great. Go to his website, stevemo thegreat.com. That's STEVEMO, the Great, like Steve Mo the Great. Go to his website. This guy is a fantastic painter. Man, I got this Belushi. I love John Belushi. He's just flipping the bird. I'm like, I've got to have that. I've got it now. Thank you, brother. You're a fantastic painter. And I want everybody to go. He's got some cool Hendrix. He's got comedians and rock stars. So it's perfect for my listeners. Go on his website. All right, everybody loved that Joey Diaz episode last week, including myself, where we talked about just rock. I don't think anything comes more natural to me than sitting down and talking rock and roll and comedy and movies. I could talk this shit for hours, and when you got somebody you can do it with that knows what the hell they're talking about, now you've got an incredible conversation of two guys that are completely music maniacs. And man, it doesn't feel like work. You're just talking, and stories are coming, and it goes on and on and on. And you guys loved it. Wow, it was the biggest episode ever on Let There Be Talk. Incredible. All over something that I just love to do anyway, that I just fucking do. I just talk music, and if you see me at the Comedy Store in the hallway, I'm either talking comedy or rock and roll, or some movie I just saw, or a motorcycle, or clothes. Those are the things I talk about. And then occasional some watches. But Joey Diaz, we're going to do that show, What's on Your Turntable. Everybody really wants to hear that, and we're going to be doing that. Speaking of talking rock, this is the funniest thing, because yesterday was Father's Day. And happy Father's Day to everybody out there. If you're father, cool. If you're a shitty father, what a dummy you are. I had a shitty stepfather who had bad work ethic. He was addicted to gambling, which I don't really talk about much. He was a piece of garbage, basically, who lived off my mom. And there was a short period of time where I thought, oh, rock and rollers live off their girlfriend, and then they just make it, eventually. And somewhere along the line, a lot of people ask me, you have great work ethic. And I think one of the reasons is I didn't want to be my stepdad, because I was kind of like that for a little bit, putting some shitty burden on a great girl who I lost from just being an idiot. But I think a lot of my work ethic I learned from this guest today, and I'm 100% sure. You want to talk hard work. People say I work hard. You got to work hard, man. If you are doing something you love, though, it doesn't feel like work. That's the fucking point. Yeah, I work 7 days a week, 3-4 shows a night. You know what? It doesn't feel like work. And this guest right here has been in a rock band for 40 years. Not just any rock band. One of the first bands that really opened my eyes to what I wanted to do. Plays in a band from the Bay Area called Y&T. A lot of people maybe haven't heard of Y&T, but let me tell you, as I sat and thought about it over the weekend, this particular band right here, in the keyhole of Del Rey's brain, my brain, this is the guy who opened up the locks. Opened up the locks, unlocked the brain, and said to myself, wow, I want to do that. I first saw the band, probably started seeing them around the Bay Area around 80, 81. I guess it's 81 because Earthshaker comes out. And they're just they're basically kind of they have a comedian work ethic. They would play everywhere, anywhere, anytime, and they had incredible fans. They worked, slept, rehearsed, everything rock and roll. As cheesy as that might sound, you want to know how people get to where they're at? They work all the time, nonstop. It's a vision, it's a dream, it's a passion. And I know I'm just getting a little bit, into it or whatever. Being cheesy? No, I don't think so. When you see something that changes your life, and then, 35, maybe 30 years later, you get to sit down and talk to that man? Oh, insane. The interview is 3 hours long. It would have been 5, easily, but I had to do stand-up comedy. And I didn't even, I'm telling you, when you talk to somebody, let's say you had someone key in your life that changed your life, and then you got to talk to him 40 years later, I can't even thank this guy enough for doing this interview. I was so high from the interview that I had to go do comedy after, and I don't even remember doing the set because I was reliving the ultimate Y&T concert in my head over and over of just seeing these guys all over the Bay Area. It just kept going through my head. As I was talking to Dave, I was like, that's fucking Dave right there in front of me 30 years later. He's alive. He's 61 years old. The guy looks better than me, and I'm 49. He sings amazing. He plays unbelievable lead guitar. The songs he has wrote are epic. And I could tell you, a lot of people talk a lot of stuff about who should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And as I finished this interview, I was like, fuck this. This guy needs to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's not about fame. It's about longevity. And it's about how many people you touched over the years with your music, man. Made people feel happy. They got a documentary coming out. And also the song you hear right now is one of my favorites. Get their albums. Get them. You know, hit the website, Y&T. They're on their 40-year anniversary this year. And thank you, Dave. I cannot tell you how much I love this interview. You're awesome, man. Before I fire it up, I just want to give you guys a couple things here. Thanks to everyone that came out to Distortion. Jim Florentine and I at the show at the Comedy Store. That was awesome, man. Talk about an epic crowd. Rogan destroyed. Joey Diaz crushed. Red Band crushed. Everybody did great, man. It was so fun. I'm going to be this weekend. If you live in Vegas or you're visiting Vegas, I'll be at the South Point Casino headlining the 12:30 Dirty show. Dirty at 12:30 at the South Point Casino, midnight on Friday the 26th. Also, Denver, only one more week, and I'm headlining at the Comedy Works downtown June 30th through July 3rd. And then Portland, I'm coming your way July 10 and 11 with the great Mark Maron, who just interviewed Obama. Can you fucking believe that? The president on a podcast? Listen to that today. Go to WTF and listen to it. Give him some love. Give him some love. That thing's going to crash the internet. You watch. There's going to be so many people loading that. And then Toronto, can't wait to come tear it up. Red Band and I, Toronto, Rock and Roll Circus, July 18th. And I'll be headlining the San Jose Improv, which I just said I absolutely love, July 30th, one night only. Get your tickets online. San Jose Improv, Red Band and I coming. I'm going to get into this right now. Thank you so much, guys. I love all you guys. And, you know, get that Y&T. Check it out. I got to tell you, I've done over 170 interviews. To me, this is the one. This is the one for me. It's just fucking awesome. Here it is. Light the candles. Dave Meniketti, how are you? I can't believe it.
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing great.
Yeah, I'm from the Bay Area, man.
Yeah.
It's first of all, it's crazy to have you on. I've been wanting to have you on for a year, but I basically grew up on your band. And I know you heard it a million times, but this was legit for me. There was bands like Le Mans and Roadrunner when I was first getting into rock at the Stone.
Yeah.
And then it's like 1981, a buddy of mine, Keith Peru, has a 65, Mustang, comes over, he goes, I got this cassette, check it out. It's Earthshaker. And it comes on, it's Dirty Girl, Hungry for Some Rock, but right. Rescue Me. And then I'm like, who is this band? I'm like a sophomore in high school.
Right.
And from then on, I'm completely like, I've seen you. People ask me what band I've seen the most. I used to say Black Crowes, but it's really you guys.
Wow.
I've seen it like 25 times, Cotati Cabaret.
Man. Thank you.
Petaluma Vets.
Right.
McNear's, The Stone,
That's
Keystone,
right. Yeah.
all over. Day on the Green.
Dude, you have been around.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen you like 100 times, but 25 times at the Cotati Cabaret.
Oh, Jesus.
The
Cotati Cabaret.
Remember that?
That was a cool place. All wood inside and everything.
Fucking, and you guys would just, it's funny because I look at your career as the ultimate career because you don't want to get too big and drop, and you don't want to be too low with no people.
Right.
I read a thing recently. They said if you had 1,000 real fans, 100%, 1,000 people that spent $100 on you a year, you could survive as an artist because that'd be about $100,000 a year.
Right.
And that sounds easy, right? 1,000 fans.
Right.
But it's impossible.
Yeah, it is.
So, what I'm trying to get at is you're 40 years in. 40 years in.
Yeah.
You start in 73. how do you build a draw? Because when I saw you, you guys were selling out anything you touched.
Yeah, no, we did really well in the Bay Area, and we still do. But how we built the draw, I mean, that's a long story, and there's so many different ways. But one of the ways that helped us was back in the early 70s, Bill Graham used to have this thing called Sounds of the City.
Right.
And he would do this cool thing where he would put the upcoming bands in the Bay Area and stick them on legitimate shows with legitimate headliners. And he would do that like certain weekends, and sometimes he would do weekdays, and he'd just put a bunch of bands that were just local bands and just stick them together on a bill and sell a cheap ticket and say, hey, come on in and see what's going on.
These are guys I think are great.
Yeah.
I saw the video 74 Winterland.
Oh, God.
You guys are just killing it.
That's craziness. Yeah. But, I mean, number one, of course, I guess it was a good thing. I never thought about it until, like literally like a year ago. I was thinking, wow, that was pretty smart, because if he kind of like built up the following to local acts that he would end up, booking back here and making money on, eventually, as it turned out.
And if you didn't have headliners, it's like I always say with comedy, you need to build the guys below the headliners, because the headliners get too big, they don't do the clubs anymore, or they get a sitcom and they're long gone. So if you don't have a farm league underneath it, you're just going to have nothing after the first 20 guys leave.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way of thinking about it. I mean, coming from a comedian's perspective, it's the same here, but I'd never really put it together like that. That's cool.
I played music 25 years, and definitely you are like one of the reasons why I played music. And I couldn't believe, the caliber of songwriting, because when you're a kid, when you're 14, 15, 16, you're like, how is he writing these great fucking tunes and great lyrics? Because if you listen to it now, it's not cheesy and it's not dated sounding. Like I have all the records on vinyl, and you just put it on and you go, wow, this is awesome, So you grew up in Oakland?
Yeah. Yeah, I was an Oakland kid, and, spent most of my all of my childhood there, and it was
what area?
Well, it was 103rd Avenue, right in between Bancroft and Foothill, and that area when I was probably 3 was a nice area. It was okay, When I started going to school, it started getting worse and worse. As far as And I don't mean because there were more black people there it got worse. I mean because there were more punks.
Yeah,
there were more punk kids that were messing with everybody, and it just got to a point where when I was probably in 7th grade or something, you could pretty much bet by the time you bicycled to school or bicycled home that somebody was going to stop you.
Yeah,
and that's just the way it was. It didn't matter white or black. It just, it was just the attitude of the area.
Yeah, it's not a race thing. Yeah. It's just unleashed in the streets thing.
Exactly. Yeah, it was just like and it was always going to be like 4 or 5 guys, on you at any one time. It was never one-on-one because usually everybody kind of doesn't do anything, but it's power in numbers kind of thing. So it was an interesting place. But to be honest with you, I actually liked it.
Yeah,
not that part of getting jumped or anything like that. That part wasn't fun. But the being in the Bay Area, the East Bay Area, it had a life to it.
Yep.
I mean, I used to tell my wife that when I first moved to the South Bay, I go, where's all the black people? Number one.
Like I grew up in the Bay Area, and you're just like San Francisco, you're spending time there, and you're engulfed in culture, race, different music, different food, different neighborhoods. This is San Fran never had fast foods. They had one McDonald's, one Jack in the Box, and that was it. So you'd go to like Tony's on the street corner, you'd eat there, and then you go to Jimmy's down in Chinatown or North Beach, wherever you go. These would be your spots, like And it's funny when you go to somewhere like San Jose or say you go up to Marin County, around New Georges and shit. You're like, what's going on here?
Yeah, exactly.
Same.
Well, that's kind of what I felt like. I mean, I was like a transplant. I went to the South Bay, and all of a sudden, everything was just so boring. I mean, you could leave your wallet on top of your car and it'd be there in the morning, but at the same time, you go to a restaurant and everybody's like, shh, don't do that.
Yeah.
And man, in the East Bay, everybody's just talking as loud as they want, having fun. People are laughing. It's like, yeah, this is the attitude and the energy. It's pretty cool.
Now, so you're in Oakland, and how do you get into rock?
Well, I think that just was, everybody that was in Y&T originally was from Oakland, with the exception of Joey. He was from San Lorenzo, basically.
Yeah, same thing.
Area. Yeah. And we all kind of came up the same way, where it was, I guess, what we used to say was the British invasion. I mean, bands like Zeppelin and The Who and Deep Purple and stuff like that. Those bands we were growing up on, and for me as well, it was Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
Because I'm such an old bastard that I mean, back in those days when I was 15 years old, Hendrix was new. Out on the market, and I just listen. We all loved music, and especially I was born and raised listening to my dad's music.
He played music?
Oh no, he didn't play music, but I mean just his own records. Just that kind of stuff,
like Elvis and stuff. What's he listening to?
No, he was listening to everything, man, from like Henry Mancini to like Frank Sinatra and stuff like that. And he would go to work, and I'd be like 4 years old, and I figured out how to do the turntable, and I'd put all his records on while I was playing with Dinosaurs and Army Men or whatever. It was always music in the background. I loved it. It affected me. It was kind of weird. It was like you'd sit there and listen to music, and I'd make up all these scenarios about life and what we were doing and whatever the hell. And I was just thinking, man, this is just so much, for me. It means so much to me. So of course, when I got an FM radio, and I'd just sit there and lay in my bed at night and listen to songs on what was a local rock stations.
Which one, KMEL?
It was KSAN.
And
it was trying to remember what the other one was. There were two that were really popular back then. They were on opposite ends of the dial almost, and
we had KMEL in the 70s was rock. Because now it's like R&B or whatever. Yeah. But that was rock. And then, of course, when I was growing up, it was KOME.
Right.
Dennis Erectus.
That's right, yeah.
And then you had KSJO.
Yeah.
And you had, there was like KRQR, the rocker.
Right.
That
came a little bit later, yeah.
Yeah, that's all later. But in the 70s, I remember KSAN.
Yeah.
And they had those great bumper stickers and stuff. So you're listening to that, and you're getting into Hendrix.
Just getting into rock music, and because I don't know, it was just what it was, but I loved guitar players. I really loved lead guitar because it wasn't really anything like that. Because I was born and raised on R&B, the same as everybody else was. It was a classic '60s R&B stuff, and all of a sudden you're hearing Hendrix, just jamming on these amazing, solos and stuff, and I'm like, wow, what is that? And then, here comes Zeppelin, here comes all these other bands, and I basically had a little, 3-inch reel-to-reel recorder, a little tiny one next to my bed, cheesy one, and I hook it up to my FM radio, and anytime I heard something that sounded pretty cool and had a solo and everything, I'd record it, and I'd just listen to it over and over, and I'd just be like, oh my God. And, so I had to go to my dad at one point when I was like 15, and I said, Dad, I got to get a guitar, man. This is it.
And what's your dad do for a living?
He was worked at Montgomery Ward's.
Oh, that's dope. Yeah. What did he do there? Like sales?
He was sales, and he was a manager of the rug department. And
and how about your mom? Just a stay-home mom?
She was a stay-home mom. Yeah, she worked a little bit when I was really young, and then she was able to stay home. It wasn't. They always kind of struggle a little bit, but they made enough to pay the bills, just. But, it was cool. It was all right. And that was the scene. And
so he gets you a guitar, and
he didn't.
Oh, he says no?
No, he said no way. Because when I was like in third grade, I saw an uncle of mine playing accordion.
Yeah.
And it was my first time I ever heard a live instrument, I mean, you don't often do that, where somebody comes over your house and he's playing this instrument, it's acoustic.
And it's a crazy looking one.
No, it was cool.
Buttons, man. And it's fucking breathing, right?
Exactly. That's what I thought. It's like, wow, all the buttons. That looks cool, So I, talked him into getting me an accordion.
Whoa, Weird Al style.
Yeah, man. And I totally found out about 6 months into it. This is not my instrument, but I was still just a little kid. I was probably 8 years old, or
So
whatever.
he's giving the old, "Nah, I bought you the accordion.
Exactly.
You didn't fuck with that.
You didn't do a damn thing with that. I'm not buying you anything."
Yeah.
So I said, "All right, well, I had a paper route, man. I'm going to save my money."
Dude, that's my...
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to see me tonight do comedy. You're going to be on the ground because I tell a great story, but you get a paper route. Man, and people, I'm 49, you're what, 63?
61.
61. People don't understand what a paper route is anymore.
No, man.
But I call it the original sweatshop.
Yeah, that's true.
People don't talk about it, but this shit is a sweatshop. You get up every morning before school. You got to fold the papers. First, you got to insert them all, put them together.
Right.
Then you got to fold them. You got black ink all over. Then you got to get on a BMX bike, or you probably had a Schwinn, and you're riding around, and then people are yelling at you. You didn't porch it.
Exactly.
But you just want to get a guitar. That's exactly why I got a paper route.
That was it, man.
I wanted to get a Charvel, Guitar Center on Market Street on Lombard, the first one. They had or it was on Van Ness. They had those Charvels. They had the Eddie Van Halen striped one,
That's cool.
And they were like, $1,200 bucks.
Holy Christ,
back then, man.
Oh, no. See, I did the super cheap way out. And, because my dad worked at Montgomery Ward's, we had all the catalogs there, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I'd just be going through them, and there's an electric guitar, and it almost looks like a Jimi Hendrix Stratocaster. It's a copy, and it was $27, So I just saved my money, and I said, well, I don't care. I'm going to buy my own. So I bought a $27 Montgomery Ward guitar.
What shape was it? Les Paul or Strat?
It was a Strat shape.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Right.
It wasn't exact.
Remember the covers? Memphis and the copies and Seville?
Right.
They had those copy guitars.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
Ibanez had the great lawsuit era ones.
Yeah, and they looked more like the Strat.
Right.
This was like a real cheap knockoff. But for me, it was just a guitar, and it looked, it had a red sunburst finish, and it looked kind of like a Strat, and it was $27, and I could afford it. And for an extra couple of bucks, I bought a little fuzz tone thing, And again, it was just knockoff, crappy, stuff. But that was all I wanted to get started.
Yeah.
And so my dad just figured, okay, well, he could tell that I was really into it, and I was just, messing around with it every day. And I go, can I get some lessons, So he got this guy, a friend of a friend or something, recommended this guy to come over the house.
Yeah.
So he came over the house for like 3 or 4 times. And by about the third time he came over, and he goes, so did you go over all your lessons? And I'd be like, well, kind of. And I wasn't a good student of the guitar, let's put it that way, as far as doing my homework. But in between lessons, I'd be listening to stuff, and I'd be picking stuff up, and I'd be bending notes and stuff. And so the guy comes in, and I'm messing around while we're talking in between, and he goes, how'd you learn to do that?
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know, I just was messing around. And finally he just got so frustrated, he just goes, you know what? I honestly think you should not do any more lessons. Just teach yourself.
Yeah.
I think it was because he just didn't want to deal with me anymore.
Yeah.
But, he probably also saw, hey, wow, this kid's picking some stuff up pretty good on his own. Obviously, it would have been better to probably learn.
Yeah. But it's so boring, right? When you're a kid, like my first guitar teacher he was teaching me this dumb song. What do you do with a drunken sailor? And I was like, this is not fucking AC/DC, dude. You know what I mean? That was the first song he showed me.
He actually taught you that, man?
Yeah, and it was a group lesson because it was only $5 if you took a group. So and also you're shy as hell. Right. So you're in there like there's people looking at me singing, which is so spooky, which is funny when you see what I do now. You think like, oh, you're spooked. But he taught me that, and I was like, this sucks, And also, you were wise. You had a fuzz pedal. My first guitar. I plugged it into it. The guy at the store said, get this one and that. Right. He's just selling me the garbage there. I didn't know. So I had an Ampeg with a 15-inch speaker, which was a bass speaker. Right. So now I'm getting no dirt. I don't understand how Angus sounds how he sounds,
I get you, man. Well, I didn't even have an amp. I just got the buzz tone, the little fuzz tone thing, just in case I ever get an amp, right? So I played it, with no amplifier. And there was a local music store called Music Unlimited in San Leandro, and they had this thing where they'd rent you an amplifier for a day or a week or 2 weeks or whatever. So I got my dad to co-sign for me so that I could rent an amplifier for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And he'd do that every once in a while, and I'd get a little Fender combo or something like that. And they were real clean. There was no dirt or distortion to it whatsoever. So that's when cool, I got my fuzz pedal and I just hit it.
Yeah.
It sounded awful, but it was distorted and it was cool.
Yeah.
And I learned how to play Inagata Vita or something on it. So
What's the first rock song? Inagata Vita, you think?
I think that was the first riff that I actually learned how to play. Yeah.
The first one I learned was Hungry for Some Rock.
Really?
Yeah, the first one. And the second one was Dirty Girl.
Wow.
And every time I go into a music store, I'd be like, I just play that. And then I'd walk out like, yeah, I can play. But I couldn't play shit. I couldn't play the rest of the song. I didn't understand.
Well, yeah, no, that's all right. Those 3 chords, man, that was rock,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
cool. So that was a good thing. Yeah, most people tell me that their first riff is Smoke on the Water.
Well, you do that when you first pick up the guitar.
Yeah, because it's so simple. It was almost similar kind of.
But
vibe.
my buddy showed me those two, Keith Peru. He had a Strat, and I was like, oh, shit, that looks pretty easy.
Right, right.
And that's all I could play, like the
Right.
intro of Dirty Girl. Dun, dun, dun. And I couldn't play anything else. But it got me along for a while.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah.
It's just something to get you into it,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So my dad just, he was grudgingly allowing me to do anything, spend any of my money on that stuff. And, they were just, come on, quit messing around with this guitar and get back to your studies. And, they had high hopes for me.
Yeah, what'd they want?
They wanted me to be like an engineer, electrical engineer or something, something.
Blue collar. Something.
Yeah. Just something. Anything that, showed that I could make some good money and, blah, blah, the typical stuff. And that was cool, but I was going somewhere else. Once I got that guitar, I never let go of it. I had it the second I got home from school. That's the first thing I picked up, and I didn't put it down until I went to sleep. Other than doing what little homework that I would finally get around to. But yeah, so he ate his words as far as me giving up on it. But he just they were just both because I was a good student and everything, and they just figured I was gonna follow in the footsteps of the cousins, and do what they were doing and get myself a good job and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, so not going there once I got into music.
Yeah, and what year are we talking? Early 70s?
I first played guitar in 1969.
Wow.
Summer of 69, yeah.
Now, were you going to concerts too, like at the Winterland and Fillmore and stuff?
I started going to concerts just before that, I think it was, and my parents wouldn't let me go to San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's a crazy time. That's like Vietnam.
Yeah.
You got Manson stuff kind of lingering, I think that Manson
I was 16, so, they weren't going to take me, and they sure as hell weren't going to let me go with somebody else.
Yeah.
So.
And you weren't sneaking over?
Yeah, I wasn't going. So I just went to the closest ones that I could go to, which was always the Oakland Coliseum.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, man.
Yeah.
I don't want to jump too far forward, but my life is Dan the Greens.
Yeah.
It goes like this. It goes, I'm into the club rock bands. I love Roadrunner. I love Le Mans. And then I discover Y&T. Now I'm seeing that all over the place. And then, my mom takes me to the first Dan the Green I see.
Oh, cool.
And I see Cheap Trick, AC/DC, Journey, Blue Oyster Cult, Ted Nugent.
Awesome.
That's 1978, September 2nd.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, that's my first show.
Right.
Obviously, I
Right.
don't see you guys till later.
Yeah.
But that is then I see Kiss, Dynasty, Cowpals. But after that, I start going to all the Dan the Greens.
Right.
And including the one you guys played. I didn't want to jump there forward, but that had to be unbelievable if you're going to Oakland Coliseum. Who are you seeing besides? You're talking the indoor
yeah.
one, the basketball one.
Yeah.
But who are you seeing at the indoor one? I've seen some of the most epic shows there.
Yeah, I've seen some great ones there. The very first show I ever went to was I think it was Creedence Clearwater, Canned Heat, and somebody else. I don't know, whatever. You know, it was the first thing. And then I saw Hendrix there.
Wow. You saw Hendrix?
Yes. I saw Hendrix there. And the opening act was a brand new band out of Chicago called Chicago Transit Authority, of course, which was Chicago, right? And they had Terry Kath, who was still alive, their original guitar player.
Oh, yeah.
And he was killing it.
He is killing it. I recently just got into Chicago 3. Mike Keneally from Zappa's band. I had him on.
Oh, cool.
And on the car ride over, he's playing Chicago 3, and I'm like, hey, what the hell is this? He's it's Chicago 3. It's great. I'm like, this shit is great, you know? And I always just, I blew them off for Roundabout. That's all they are. You know what I mean? But you get into this instrumentation, they're kind of like the East Coast version of a little bit of Santana, that kind of Abraxas. Yeah, with the B3. But then you've got some horns like Tower of Power.
Exactly. They had a lot of stuff going on. I mean, there weren't many bands that were doing that. And so that was just, that was one of the cool. I saw Zeppelin there.
You saw Zeppelin there?
Yeah,
the outdoor one?
No, indoors.
The indoor they played there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
It was awesome, man.
What era was that?
I mean, that was probably early 70s.
Wow, man.
Yeah. That had to have been probably early 70s, yeah. And I remember, just for me, sitting, in the cheap seats way in the back and hearing, Since I've Been Loving You, with the bass player, playing keyboards and hitting the bass with his feet and just this boom, 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 just awesome, man. It was just like the hair standing up on your arms.
Absolutely right, man. And then that vocal, how violent it is.
Yeah, man. It was cool. It was very cool.
Oh.
Yeah, I saw, let's see, who else did I see there? Later on, I saw, who was it? Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Awesome.
Which was actually an awesome show.
Awesome.
It was when they were in their prime.
Yeah.
And they did an hour-and-a-half set acoustically sitting down, and then they took like a half-hour break, and everybody got up, they turned the lights on in the Coliseum, and you got back in your seats, and then they played 2 hours electrically.
Oh, man.
Just killing it and jamming and everything. It was cool, man. It was a really good show.
Ohio is one of the greatest tunes, And Neil Young, he's an absolute god.
Yeah.
His tone, all his eras, like with the he played that big white falcon, Gretsch, and just his whole thing, man.
Yeah, and they did a long jam on Ohio. I remember that night, and it went on, and it was like each guy was trading off solos at the end and everything, and it was a killer. They brought down the house, But I saw some great shows there, and then eventually, of course, I got out to some other places. I went to the
Keystone Berkeley.
Well, yeah, definitely, yeah. I went to Berkeley, but at that point. We had already been playing, and we started playing the places. So,
how does this band get together? Is it your first band yesterday and today?
Yeah. It's the first real band.
Right.
Yeah. I had a band it's just kind of an odd thing that there were two. Well, we used to hang out at these parties in the Oakland Hills.
Yeah.
And you'd go to these parties, and there'd always be somebody there jamming.
Oh, yeah, I love those, right?
Yeah.
Like I would go and it'd be Vicious Rumors. You know that band?
Oh, yes, of course, yeah.
So, I'd go to a keg, 40 kegs. You pay $10. They really only had 5 kegs, maybe 2.
Right.
But they'd say there's 40. The band would play a little bit. They'd call the cops on it, and the dudes would make like $2,000.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we never got paid for any of that stuff. It was just like friends' houses when their parents were away up in these cool houses in the hills, and and there'd just be jammed with people, and keg parties, obviously, and just impromptu stuff with people just bringing their amps or drums or whatever, and a lot of times you didn't even know who you were going to jam with, and maybe you were just going to get up there. But that's kind of how we found out who the hot musicians were in the area.
Wow.
Is that we'd go to these parties and people would be talking, or you'd see somebody, or you just hear some other musician guys just talking, going, man, have you heard this drummer Leonard Hayes, or have you heard this drummer Leonard Silva? And so both Leonards were like the top guys in the area, not necessarily just Oakland, San Leandro, whatever, just the East Bay, right?
Yeah.
And so I eventually met both of them, and just by some weird chance, I ended up playing with Leonard Silva, the other guy that they both went to the same school. They went to San Leandro High.
Wow.
And Leonard Silva was absolutely he was like more of well, Leonard was more kind of like the Zeppelin thing, kind of the Bonham thing, right?
Leonard Hayes.
Yeah, Leonard Hayes.
I was going to say,
yeah, but Leonard Silva was more like, he was in Hendrix or something. It was that
like Buddy
kinda,
Miles, kind of.
Well, sort of. It was just more flowy kind of stuff, and it was a different
Ginger Baker.
style. Yeah, it could have been more like that. Yeah.
Right.
And so we made this band. It was a trio with this hot bass player in the area that was really good, big tall guy. And we played a couple of shows just doing like made up songs that we came up with,
Wow.
and a couple of cover tunes, right? Because we weren't like writing tons of stuff, but we would come up with a groove and a riff, and we just jam on it, and then we do some cover tunes. And wow, people were like getting into it, going, wow, these guys are pretty cool. And we got a few gigs. And then it all turned to crap, because both the bass player and the drummer started hanging with a bunch of seedy guys and stuff, and I'd show up at rehearsal, and and they'd be tying each other off and shooting heroin.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah, and they'd have some guys that are like living in the rehearsal room, and they just ripped off some truck for like 500 cases of toilet paper or something.
And they're just selling it for dope.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Selling it for dope. And I'm like, what the hell's going on, man? So finally, I just figured, well, I don't know, maybe this is going to clean up eventually. And we played this party, and it was packed, and everybody was like, wow, we've heard about you guys, anticipating.
And do you guys got a name?
And we had a name. It was called Skin Tight.
Yeah. Skin Tight.
Anyway, so we go, man, and we're waiting, and all these people showed up, and they're all waiting, and maybe there was like 150 people at this party. It was pretty cool. And there had been a break in between when we had set up and when we were waiting for the crowd to come, and I didn't see the rest of the guys. And sure enough, man, we go back to our gear to start up, and I look at Leonard and I look at the other guy, the bass player, and they're both high on PCP.
Whoa.
So they were blank, man.
Whoa, man! They didn't not did they get stoned, but they just go full blown. Wow! How could you tell? Were they just staring at you?
Because I'd done PCP, and
me too.
Many times actually at that time, and so I knew that blank stare, and I knew that there was no friggin' way these guys were going to play, anything that wasn't going to be a complete mess.
Yeah.
They weren't even going to know what they were playing,
Whoa.
So I just, we started a song, and then I just stopped, and I don't even think they realized that I stopped. That's how high they were, right? And everybody in the crowd's looking, and I grabbed my stuff, and I packed it up, and I started going down the driveway with it, man. I had my little amplifier, man, and I had it on wheels, and I was going down, and like 5 minutes later, when they figured out what actually happened, Leonard Silva's like running down the driveway. Well, he wasn't running because he probably couldn't run. He's like, "Hey, Dave, man, you can't do that, man." I'm like, "I'm out of here, man. Forget it."
That's funny you're talking slow, because that's how you feel on PCP.
Yeah.
It feels like you're a magnet and the ground is steel, and everybody's going like, "Look out below."
That's it, man. I've told the guys in the band, the current band too, I go, no, I've never taken anything like that, right? And this was all when I was in high school. I mean, I had 2 years of madness with drugs, man. When I first started playing guitar, I met musicians, and we jammed, and guess what musicians did? They got high. And so I learned to get high, man, with everybody else. And so I told the guys, I go, yeah, man, PCP, it was the weirdest drug. It was like you were dead with your eyes open. That's kind of what it reminded me. I mean, I don't know. I've never been dead, but, if I were to imagine what dead was like, this was pretty much it. It was like my eyes were open. I kind of see what's going on.
Yeah.
Everything's super slow.
It's crazy.
Really. There was a guy, well, we would party like up by Oakland Zoo.
Yeah.
And I remember we'd go in the back, way back in where, we were away from everybody, and it was pretty woodsy. And, we'd all be smoking cigarettes and stuff. And I had this watch on. And I remember that one of the guys that got high with me, he puts his cigarette out on the top of my watch, right? And I'm sitting there watching it. And, and he burned the top of the watch, It's like it was completely ruined after that. But it probably took me 15 minutes, or at least it felt like it, just to say, wow, dude, what did you do that for, right? And maybe an hour later for him to say, oh, I don't know.
Oh, man, that shit was bugging me, man. Time was going too fast.
Yeah.
It's crazy, like, the drugs, because kids take drugs now and they take all these, like, ecstasy and all that stuff, Molly and shit. But when you think about, I was slipped PCP. So, you're thinking about those school videos, movies they would show you, and the guy would break the handcuffs, remember, and just jump off a bridge, and they go, PCP. Those scare movies. But when I was on it, I was at a Motorhead show. Someone slipped it to me. I thought, I'm dead here, man. Because I went straight home. I left the concert, and I closed all the windows. I didn't want to jump out. You know what I mean? This stuff makes you jump out of windows.
Right.
Well,
I mean, me and my buddies that were taking it back then, we used to hear all these stories about guys that would do just like you said, where, the cops would take them in and they were like super strong. And they'd take like 5 cops or 6 cops to subdue them. And I'd think like, really?
Yeah.
When we do it, we're so dead we can't even move, man.
Yeah, they got us.
How are these guys getting violent? I mean, it took me like an hour to stand up one time,
Yeah, right? It's crazy. I think it's people have different reactions.
Exactly,
like if I did coke, I'm a hyper guy. I would completely go the other way.
That's what happens to me, man.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It's like Ritalin for kids. I'd just be like, and then I'd be in the corner talking about a G-string.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, not a woman's G-string, like, the G-string.
The G-string on a guitar, right?
Yeah. But it's just crazy.
That's funny, man. I had a friend when I went to high school, and we used to, cut lunch. That was the big thing because I went to a Catholic high school, so you couldn't go off campus, right, to eat lunch. But we'd sneak down to his car, and we'd like lay back in the car so nobody could see us, and and smoke pot and listen to I don't know, whoever. I think we were listening a lot to Ozzy and actually not Ozzy, but Sabbath, yeah, and
that's total stoner rock.
Yeah, exactly. Stoner music, man, is perfect. And one time, he's like, man, I've got this job, where I'm, washing dishes and doing janitor work or something like that, and I got to keep up, and I'm taking these beans, man, and stuff that would, basically hype you up, right? And so he gave me one, and I went into this big like, oh man, everything's cool. Totally the opposite, just like you said. Yeah. So it's everybody's interior is different how they deal with drugs.
I can't even smoke weed now. It's just too fucking strong, man. These guys smoke this shit, and I'm just like, whoa, man. I think I'm dying over here. I always say, just smoke PCP and leave the weed back how it was in the 80s, right?
Right.
Leave the weed for the rookies because this weed is like PCP.
Wow. I'm glad I don't smoke it anymore, man, because I think that would have messed me up. Man.
Yeah. So you shit can those guys, and now you're back to just you.
Yeah. And then, I show up at a party, I see Leonard Hayes. And Leonard had seen me at a couple other parties. And, Leonard had this chip on his shoulder, kind of like, I'm badass and I know it kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And he said, so we've heard some things about you, man, that you're a pretty good guitar player, He goes, well, we already got a band, but, maybe one of these days we'll jam with you. Well, it was like right after I'd broken up with them, turned out that their guitar player that they had was moving to India or some weird thing, and so they're looking for a guy all of a sudden. So I remember he called me up on the phone, and I was a pretty straight-laced kind of guy that got into music and then became a stoner for 2 years.
Yeah,
and then I dropped all that stuff.
Just no drugs after 2 years.
After 2 years, that was it. Yeah, and so he calls me up and he goes, you're not like still getting drunk all the time and stuff. I never really did get drunk. I mean,
that's hilarious coming from him.
Exactly. and I'm like, no, I'm cool, man. Everything's fine. And he goes, well, come on over and jam with us at this, at this friend of mine's house. And so I went up there and I jammed with him, and that was it.
And who's there? It's Joey?
It was just him and the original bass player that we were playing cover tunes with.
Gotcha.
Which was Bobby Gardner. and it was just the three of us, and we just played as a trio, and we were doing some pretty wild stuff, man, just jamming, basically jamming okay, here we go, or whatever. And
let me ask you, when you first played with Leonard Hayes, are you floored by his bonzo style? Because he was really the only guy that I ever saw that was pretty close to bonzo.
Yeah.
You're like, what the fuck is this guy?
It was a different feeling because I'd been playing with Leonard Silva, which was a different style than him. And then I had played with this other guy that was straight out of the loony bin. And I'm not kidding you. He actually went crazy on I think he dropped a bunch of PCP or something. I don't know, whatever. But this guy was wild, man.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a wild man, but he was awesome. But he didn't play. None of these guys played like Leonard. Leonard was one to himself. He was just a big sound and straight ahead and hard, and man, he punched the hell out of those drums.
Yeah. And when you first see Leonard, is he playing Ludwig's or does he got a great kit? He's pro already?
He had a Gretsch set.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember I touched his drums when I came in. I go, wow, these are cool. And he goes, get your fucking hands off my drums, man.
Whoa. Really?
Like, wow. Okay. Dude. He was a little aggressive back then. Well, he was for quite a few years, actually. But
now, Leonard
it kind of went with his style. Oh, at that time, he was all about, man, I used to get high and you used to get high and we used to sit there and talk about it and how stupid it was and how dumb we were. And, when we stopped getting high and we hang with the same friends, how, you'd look at them and go, was that how I used to act? Oh, that's dumb. And, 6 months or 8 months later, all of a sudden, or maybe it was a year later, he's getting into coke because a friend of mine that went to high school with me used to come out and see us play. And we'd play like, Navy bases and apartment complexes and weddings and stuff like that, right? Just doing cover tunes.
Yeah.
And so he'd come out and Leonard meets him, and Leonard wants to be the life of the party, and he wants to, be friends with the guy.
Yep.
And, well, guess what? We're out of high school now, and he's a coke dealer.
Wow.
Yeah.
No shit?
Yeah, this friend
Leonard?
of mine.
Oh, your friend of yours?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And so Leonard wants to meet him, and Leonard wants to get buddy with him, and sure enough, he's like, hey, man, why don't we do a line here? And Leonard's like, okay.
Yeah.
That was it, man.
Yeah.
Ever since then, yeah, it was totally the opposite. I stayed straight, and he went bonzo the other way, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I talk about it as weird as it is. When we grew up, like you grew up in the 70s, I grew up in the 80s. There's a lot of drug dealers that are in the neighborhood, and they're our friends. And I say these weed stores are wiping out the artist funding because those coke dealers and weed dealers wanted to hang with the band,
right?
Because there's girls around,
right?
And then they go, hey man, I got like $5,000 sitting around, let's go do an album, let's go do some demos. And next thing you know, you're in Fantasy Records with it's like Boogie Nights,
right?
But you're doing real tunes. You're not going feel my heat, But those guys really funded rock and roll, man.
How funny you said that, man.
Isn't that funny?
Nobody has ever said that to me, and that's absolutely true, man. I mean, the first amplifier I bought was a high watt. The first real amplifier,
yeah.
Right? And it was funded by the same guy that got Leonard started on cocaine.
Yeah.
Because he had all this money. And he goes, hey, man, I'll get you going, man. I'll you need some money for that? I'll do it, and you just pay me back.
Exactly.
And I did, of course, but it took a while, but I got it all back to him and everything. And yeah, he was the guy, man.
Yeah.
And we went out and did our first demo tape at Freeway Recording Studio in Oakland. And, I can't remember who funded that, man.
Yeah.
But I'll bet it was one of those guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because they've got shitloads of cash, and they've done buying the 68 Camaro and the Vet and the fucking jet ski. Now they're like, shit, let's go in the studio. And they like to kind of, in their mind, I'm kind of producing this band, they get into that,
Right, exactly.
But it really, really, the drug money would spill into rock and roll, and a lot of bands, and I know them right now, were funded by that kind of stuff.
Dude, you are talking the talk right now. It's funny that you mentioned so many things today that nobody else has caught.
Yeah.
And it's like, you really know what's going on, how we started and what we were going through at the time. That's cool, which is a great thing for me And I'll tell you why, because we're doing a documentary.
I saw that, man.
Right. And we're all like trying to figure out, what stories we should be talking about and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, man, I got to cover a copy of this interview.
I'll give it to you.
And show the guys that are making the documentary, check out this stuff, man.
Yeah.
This is not your typical questions like, how'd you first play guitar? That's in there, but
Yeah.
No,
I'm only asking you that because you're talking to a guy who absolutely loved your band. I mean, like beyond,
Right.
like my childhood was going around NorCal watching fucking Y&T. And I was such a nerd on it that recently I was like, man, how come he doesn't play that SG 3000 anymore?
Man.
That's the shit I know. I know, wow, he's got a wireless nasty. Before it was Nady, they
Right.
were nasty.
Right.
He's got a Marshall Plexi. This fucking guy, he has a Les Paul that you still play that's all worn out on the top
Messed
now
up, yep.
from those swells of fucking, when you do that, I used to see those volume swells,
Dude, you know everything.
Yeah, dude.
You really do know your shit. That's great, man. I mean, I have so many interviews that I've done over my career, and I mean, thousands and thousands. And some guys will say, yeah, man, I'm really into you, and they don't know shit.
Yeah.
It's like they read the bio, and then because I can tell by the questions they're asking me, it's like, no, you really know what's going on.
I love asking the questions that I would ask. When I hear an interview, I go, hey, asshole, ask him about this. You know what I mean?
Exactly, yeah.
So you got Leonard, and how do you get Phil and Joey?
Well, when I first joined the band with Leonard, they had a keyboard player that came in. When we first jammed, he wasn't around. But when we actually, he said, okay, now come on over. We got 4 hours worth of material that you got to learn, because we were going to be playing these gigs and they want 4 one-hour sets, doing dance music or whatever. It's all cover tunes. And so I came in the first day to come to rehearsal, and here's, same guy, Bobby on bass and Leonard. And there's this guy, Wayne Stitzer, and he's playing piano. And I'm like, okay, well, that's interesting. I've never played with a guy playing piano in a band, Yeah,
I love that early journey with Greg Raleigh.
Yeah, exactly.
That shit, and even the later Santana, fuck, man, that shit,
Yeah.
And I really, really always thought your band was really close to Foreigner, the first record,
Right.
Feels like the first time and that
Right.
kind of shit.
Right.
That was the closest I felt. So I could see piano in it.
Yeah.
Not now, because once you get it, but at that time.
Yeah, and of course we weren't writing original tunes though, so we weren't able to take advantage of that sound when we were doing it. But this whole gig was just basically to do a cover band, and we didn't have any aspirations at that particular moment of doing our own material yet. We were just like, let's make some money.
Yeah.
And let's go out and play some gigs. And Leonard had already been doing this in different bands that he had been in over the years, with his mom helping him out and his granny, giving him money and stuff to help. And so I just was like, well, cool, man. I'll join up and, see what happens. And sure enough, that's
And you're
exactly
singing
what.
in the band.
Well, yeah, I would do some of the singing. Joey, sorry. Bobby would sing. Our keyboard player would sing. Leonard would sing. All of us would.
That 70s style. Like Kiss, like Beatles, like everybody.
We shared, because it was a whole bunch of stuff that we were playing, and some people's voices were better for that song than another. And, here, you do the, Chicago tune, and I'll do the, mountain tune, and you do, whatever.
Yeah.
And so it was that kind of a thing.
And you remember your first time you sing, were you nervous? Like, oh, my voice.
Oh, yeah, because that wasn't my thing. I was just a guitar player at first. And but I figure I could probably sing. I'll just let it go. And I wasn't confident.
Yeah.
It was just...
Because your singing is fucking spectacular.
Well, thanks, man.
Even I just watched a video from 2014, and I was watching Keep On Running.
Right.
And you said, this is the hardest one for me to sing.
Right.
But you're like, gotta keep on running. You just sound exact to the fucking record. And I'm like, man, this guy, your vocals are phenomenal.
Thanks.
And they're original.
Yeah.
That's what's great, because like I felt my voice, my comedy voice is original. It's me and my stories. But my singing voice would adapt over the years to the styles.
Right.
Like I loved Bon Scott.
Right.
So, okay, I sound like Bond. Then later, I sound a little bit like Axl Rose. Oh, now I sound like Lane Staley from Alice in Chains.
Right.
I never really, when I opened my mouth, was me. I don't really know what me is.
Yeah.
But you, when I hear you, I go, oh, that's Dave, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, eventually I had a distinctive voice. Of course, back then when I was doing cover tunes, I don't know what the hell my voice was like. I mean, I have tapes of it, but it's like...
Were you taking lessons for singing?
No.
No?
We did... Well, eventually. Once we got, let me just tell you about this thing about Phil.
Yeah.
Basically, our bass player, we got to a point where... the four of us were playing a lot of gigs. Then we added a dude playing sax so we could do some extra stuff. And then he left. And then we got some other guitar player that was just shit hot, man. The guy was amazing. He was more kind of a jazzy guy, but he could play anything. He was so fast and so clean. Barry, I remember him. And then he quit and went up to the Northwest. So then at some point, the keyboard player quit, the sax player quit. And it was just a trio again.
Yeah.
It was me, Leonard, and Bobby, how we started out jamming. And we were doing that for a long time. And then Bobby just thought, man, Meniketti, you play so loud, man. He goes, you're hurting my fingers to play 4 hours to play bass. I have to keep up with you, man. And he
you got that high watt amp. Those fucking things are loud as fuck, right?
Loud.
Just clean tone.
Yep.
All of a sudden you're the Who. You know?
Exactly. And so he just said, okay, I'm going to go play guitar. We need to get a bass player now. I'll play rhythm guitar and we'll just get an extra bass player. Not extra bass player. I mean, somebody to take his place playing bass. So Leonard goes, well, I know this guy. I used to go to junior high with him, Phil Kennemore. And I thought, Phil Kennemore, I think I met him one time walking around at one of these parties in Oakland.
Yeah.
It's one of those kinds of things, right? But, so he calls Phil up and Phil comes down to rehearse and Phil's a cool guy, man. I mean, I got off with him right away. We were just good friends right away almost. And, that just happened. And so, again, we're still only playing cover tunes at that time. Just, learn these 4 hours worth of songs. Here we go. And then at that point, somewhere along the line, we all kind of said to each other, well, at least me and Leonard and Phil said to each other,
yeah,
we're a good band, man. We got to do our own thing.
Yeah.
We got to come up with our own stuff. So we started writing for the first time together, right? And
that's crazy.
And we come up with this tune, and it's pretty heavy, And Leonard calls it rock and roll horror,
Leonard, what a maniac!
Oh yeah. And he was singing it with me. Yeah, we were going back and forth. We practice every night just to get our shit together, or whatever the hell it was. It was,
Yeah.
It was,
that's hilarious.
It was funny, man.
Yeah.
We're a rock and roll whore, whatever. So we bring this into the band with our current, lineup, and because the keyboard player came back after Leonard, and after Phil got in the band, right? And he looked at that and he heard that and he goes, if that's what you guys are doing, I'm out. Because he was like a jazz head.
It's such a band thing. Right?
Yeah.
Those rehearsal dynamics are weird because you get a guy just come in and he's just stewing in the corner.
Right.
And then you're like, what's up? And he's like, I'm not digging our sound, dude.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's so Spinal Tap, man. And also, Almost Famous really hits it hard, that movie, because that feels so real,
does, yeah.
I don't like this, man. I'm out, So he
I know.
quits.
I hear you. So we did that, and he quits, and we're like, okay, we need a rhythm guitar player. And one of the friends that used to come with our buddy that was the coke dealer to the shows was a friend that lived in his area in San Lorenzo. And we became friends with him because he'd come to all the shows, and he was a big time fan of us doing, our cover tune stuff. And
are you guys still called Skin Tight?
No, we were Yesterday and Today.
Now, how do you pick that name before we get Joe?
Okay, all right. That happened very soon once I got in the band. Because once I got in the band, they didn't have any gigs yet.
Yeah.
They had just gone through a guitar player change, and they brought me in, and so what happened is that. We rehearsed for probably about 2 weeks or something like that, and we had all of our songs ready. And Leonard, one afternoon, gets a phone call from a guy that he had played gigs for before. I think it was I don't remember where it was. Well, I remember what the gig was, but I don't remember where it was.
Right.
But he had played some show for this guy once before when he was in a band, years before. And he goes, "Hey, Leonard, I hear you got a new band. I got a gig for you, And he goes, "Great." He goes, "So what's the name of the band?" And Leonard's like, because we never talked about it.
Yeah.
So he had no name yet,
Yeah.
And Leonard's playing the Yesterday and Today Beatles album at the time. And he's got and he's got the 12-inch, cover sitting on his lap. And he's like, Yesterday and Today. That's what we are. So I come over the next day and he goes, "Dude, I got a gig for us, man. Our first gig. And by the way, I named the band."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yesterday and Today." And I go, "What?" What the hell did you name us that for, man?
Yeah.
It sounds like we're doing, songs from yesterday and today. It's like, no.
It almost sounds a little bit like 70s, though, like Kansas, yesterday, and then there'd be like Breezy Wind,
right, exactly.
America,
at the end of the day, what did the name mean? It was more just a place card holder for
totally
here's what this band was. But so we stuck with it for a while, and then by the time we started saying that we wanted to do original material, we find this guy that was a friend coming to the shows, a fan and a friend, because he was a good guy, and we knew that he could play guitar pretty well because he had another band that he had a band he was in that we'd see him every once in a while playing parties and stuff like that, right? And it's like, hey, he's a pretty good guitar player. Let's call him in and see if he wants to hang with us, and he'll have to learn some of these cover tunes we're doing still, but in hopes that we got an original band now ready to go. So he fit in just perfectly. He was a good guy, partying kind of guy, had a great attitude. And so we just said, time to get down to business. So we found this guy that was a friend of a friend that his dad had a plumbing supply place in Hayward, and he said that his dad would section it off in half.
Yeah.
And we could have the other half, and we could rehearse there. And it was in an industrial area. No, we wouldn't have bother anybody. We could play any time of the day or night as loud as we wanted. So we get into that room, and we just jam for like 10 hours a day, every day.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Just fucking laying it down.
Just laying it down.
Now, Joey, only rhythm, he comes in, right? And you tell him, hey, you're just Malcolm in this band.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because he was the Malcolm of Y&T.
Sure he was.
Like this fucking guy over there. What was he, Hispanic? What was he?
He was Portuguese.
Portuguese.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he had a bit of a darker skin. He had a Portuguese look to him. And, it was cool. It was all okay for us.
He played a melody maker, right?
Yeah, man. He had a great old guitar, and the cool thing is that, we were all into the same style of music.
Right.
We were all listening to stuff, hanging together. It was truly a hang. It's not like, nowadays when you're in a professional band that's already been doing it for years.
Yeah.
And you're never going to hang together half the time, right?
No,
you're never going to see them, right? I mean, once you're done with the friggin' tour, you're not going to see these guys until you have to rehearse again,
Yeah.
But
or even hear from them.
Yeah, exactly right.
Because you go, that's my job. That's where I work.
Exactly. So we were just hanging. That was all we did. 24/7, man. We were with each other all the time. I mean, go home to our parents' house and crash, but that was it, man. I mean, we lived and breathed music, and we would, if we weren't playing it or writing it, we would be listening to it, hanging out at somebody's pad, playing cards or whatever the hell,
Yeah.
And so we were all into the same kind of stuff, and it just became a real obvious thing once we got started into the writing procedure that there were certain guys that were taken over, as the principal songwriters.
Yeah.
At first, it was me and Leonard, actually, and
Leonard wrote. Did he?
Yeah,
I know he wrote. Did he write Alcohol?
Yes, he did.
Okay,
Yeah.
and he wrote, of course, Summertime Girls. But he wrote. Did he write on guitar, or we just
no? He would kind of pick a guitar up and just kind of screw around with a note or something. But most of the time, he would just yell out a melody, And Leonard was not the best singer, so trying to decipher the melody was not necessarily. Hey, man, what? Wait a minute, is this it? No, that's not it, man. You didn't get me. But no, So it was basically I was coming up with these riffs, and he would have an idea for a melody or a lyric or something like that, and or sometimes he'd come up with a riff, and he would just tell me, just do da 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 or something like that, right? And then he'd start playing, right? And then I'd play the riff, and then we'd all together come up with more of it, and we'd write the song together.
Yep.
And that's kind of how things got done. I mean, somebody was the catalyst, and then the rest of us all finished it up.
Yeah, that's how a great band works.
Yeah.
I always say, like, people go, well, that guy got robbed on songwriter or whatever. And it's like, that's because that guy wanted to go home to his girlfriend and watch TV.
Yeah.
And when he walked out of that fucking door, we stayed 4 more hours and we came up with Dirty Girl. You know what I mean?
Dude, can you do my documentary for me?
It's so true, though.
It's true, man.
And
it's
then
absolutely
10
true.
years later, they come around like, hey, man, where's my checks? And you go, hey, you were with your girl.
Yeah.
And then they go, well, for now on, I write songs. And they're absolutely terrible. But they just want to get them in the band because they think, hey, and it's way too late. It's way too late. You missed the boat of this early lightning in the bottle.
Man, you are so right. Wow. And that's the stuff, that people that are not musicians or people that didn't stick in a band long enough to find out what was going to happen like that, they don't know that stuff. And, and eventually what ended up happening is that I would get turned on writing, and you couldn't stop me. I'd be like a hurricane, I mean, I was just, I was possessed, and it was like all of a sudden I'm coming up with a whole lot of the material, because I'm just on fire, and I got this idea, because that's what would happen when we get together and jam, and it wasn't always me. I'm not trying to say that, but eventually over the years it got to that point where I was coming up with the majority of the stuff.
Like after the first yesterday.
After the first two yesterday.
Right. Then you get into Y&T. Obviously, Earthshaker.
Right.
You can tell all of a sudden it's a different writer.
Yeah.
I could tell because these things have a common thread. Black Tiger and Mean Streak. You listen to them and you go, oh, yeah. They all have this. That's what I loved about the band. It was the sound. It was a Y&T sound. It was the themes and the riffs and everything. You could tell what was going on, you know?
Right.
But when you have a guy like that, like if I have Pete Townsend in my band, I'm not coming over when he has fucking, Won't Get Fooled Again. I mean, that's pretty good, but check this out.
Right.
Or when you have a Jimmy Page who sees the whole picture, sometimes you got to take the ride,
Yeah. And, of course, it was a little bit of a shocker as it went through because Leonard and I were sort of going back and forth and coming up with stuff more often. And then he started realizing that I was coming up with more material, but he was okay with it. It was all right. And then, a couple albums into it, we get around to the Earthshaker times before the Earthshaker record, and we had a lot of time to write because we were in between record deals, and Phil was coming into his own. And Phil was writing amazing lyrics.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Like which ones?
Almost friggin' all the things you've heard, man.
Are you
About
kidding?
60% of the stuff or 70% of the lyrics from Earthshaker on were Phil.
I never knew that. So he's like the Geezer Butler of the band.
Man. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
Yeah. So Phil and I would hang out a lot anyway because we were good buddies.
Yeah.
Outside of the band. And so it just ended up being after a certain amount of time that it was Dave and Phil that were writing everything now.
Yeah.
So Phil would have these great ideas for lyrics. He'd have good ideas for melody lines. And then he would go home sometimes and he'd pick up a guitar and he'd start writing songs. And eventually it just got to the point where it was just us, the two of us pretty much writing almost everything. And Joey would come up with stuff every once in a while, like, he'd come up with a really cool, interesting rhythm thing, and then we'd nail the rest of it or something like that, So we were all writing at different times, but I'd say probably, 80% of it ended up being Phil and I at the end of the day. So
now, after your records on London, they drop you. What, you don't sell records? Where was London Records, the label out of?
Well, we got the deal opening up for Queen. At the Berkeley Community Theater.
Get the fuck out.
Yeah.
What? You opened for Queen?
Yeah.
Dude.
And the year before that we opened for Queen at Winterland.
Wow, man. So you cool. Meet Freddie and
well, you know what? Be honest with you, we didn't meet any of them.
Yeah, it's back. I understand that.
Yeah, I mean they were kind of like in their own world, and we were like you know, with our mouths open, like,
Yeah.
wow, just standing on the side of the stage when they're doing the sound check.
Wow.
That was good enough for me. You know what I mean?
Right.
And knowing that, you know, we were watching them do their thing, you know, when nobody else was there and you know, really going through the stuff. It was pretty cool. And so we were already Queen fans before we played with them, and that was probably like, I don't know, 75 or something like that, or whatever it was. Probably 75. And then the next year, 76, we opened for them at the Berkeley Community Theater. We played 2 shows in one night because that's how they used to do it at Berkeley.
Right?
Yeah. I saw Jimi Hendrix at Berkeley, too. That was the second time.
Jimmy plays
that
Berkeley.
I saw him. Yeah, exactly. That was that show.
Man,
it was that show.
That's epic.
Yeah, so the president of London Records U.S. was in the audience. He had come there because our management company had asked him to come, and they signed us after that. But as my manager would like to say, he signed our production company more than he signed you. You know,
that old bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. So we did a record, and it sold pretty well. You know, at that time for that company, and the fact that you know, they weren't doing that much. We didn't have a hit on the radio except locally.
Yeah.
You know, like they played "Beautiful Dreamer," you know, it's at KSJO, you know, and stuff like that. You know, and a few other songs. And so we were doing well here and in L.A., but the rest of the country hadn't really heard of us yet. So we go out in the first tour, and our first tour was us headlining, playing clubs and small halls, and the Runaways opening up for their first tour.
Yeah, man. U.S. tour. With the Runaways.
Yes.
Cherry Bomb.
Yep.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. So that was
a bus
madness.
or in a van?
This was in a van, man.
Yeah.
In a couple vans, you know. And so we did that, and then we come together and we do the second record, and we're doing the second record. And while it's getting tracked, and almost at the end of tracking, we're just getting about pretty close to mix down time. Our manager comes in and goes, "Well, London Records just called me and said they decided they don't want to do rock anymore. They're going to get rid of all of their rock artists. There weren't that many at that time. It was like us and ZZ Top and I think a band from Canada. Who was that?
Triumph?
No, it wasn't Triumph. It was somebody else.
April Wine?
April Wine.
Oh, yeah, great band.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was those 3 bands, and I think the Stones were already off of the record label by that time. So we're thinking, oh, this is great. We've just, you know, written all these new songs. We've gone in here and we're recording them and spending all this money, and it's probably going to be dead in the water when it comes out because they're already, you know, want to get rid of, you know, all the top
they got
stuff.
no interest.
Yeah, no interest. All they want to do is, you know, Engelbert Humperdinck, and, you know, they had all kinds of other artists, and it was mostly classical stuff or pop music of my dad's generation or something like that, right? So, you know, they went and, you know, brought us to a couple of radio stations and did a couple of things, and we went back out on the road and tried to do that same basic kind of tour that we did the first time, but you know, the record company wasn't going to support it, and it was just you know, 1978, and here we are, and we're dead in the water. What are we going to do now?
Yeah,
you know?
Second record, and what people don't understand is once you're dropped, it's the cancer of a band forever. Not so much maybe in the 70s because I didn't really hear about bands getting dropped in the 70s. But in the 80s, you sign a big deal on Geffen and you put it out and it sells like 20,000. You never come back ever. There's not another label going, you know, they fucked up. Our vision's different. No, long gone.
Yep,
you know?
Exactly. Well, and at that point, it was just, you know, it wasn't because they didn't like the band. They just didn't want
the genre.
They didn't want the genre. So we're off. And we got 3 years after we struck down before we get a deal with A&M Records.
Now, this is crazy because we're talking about the era of punk all of a sudden hits.
Right.
And you're a classic rock band, and everybody's looking at that era as like dinosaurs. Remember the quote, dinosaur rock is dead. And here comes the Clash, Sex Pistols.
Right.
And then you've got a thing of new wave. You've got the Knack.
Exactly.
You've got My Sharona. Everybody wants the new Knack.
Right.
And really, rock doesn't really hit again until around Van Halen 1 takes off. They signed in 78, but it's probably like 80 is when people start seeing rock. And then, of course, they talk about Quiet Riot, you know, is the real big monster later on.
Right.
But, you know, in the meantime, Ted Nugent, AC/DC, and, you know, Scorpions are getting big. And then, you know, that shit's brewing and coming up, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're 3 years and you keep the band together. There's no like downtime of people like, hey, we're done.
No, not at all. I mean, we were just like, wow, they pulled the rug out from under us. We don't have a record deal now.
Yeah.
But that didn't mean anything because we'd already been around the U.S. a couple of times, and we saw that there was a good fan base there. And we had heard through the pipeline that supposedly people knew about us in Japan and in Europe. But, we didn't know much at that time. We weren't in the...
There's no internet.
We weren't constantly in the rock magazines because there weren't that many rock magazines back then.
Yeah, Cream and Circus and
those,
Rolling Stone.
Those were coming out more in the 80s. You know?
Right.
So during the 70s, there was still there, but, we were kind of low on the totem pole because, we didn't have a record deal.
Yeah.
So we go out and we just keep writing and we just keep hammering ourselves in that rehearsal studio in Hayward and spending every day down there writing new stuff. But we were never discouraged. We were just like, can't wait till the next thing.
And you're out playing gigs on the weekends?
And we're out playing gigs on the weekends.
And what are you doing, like Keystones, like the Palo Alto?
Yep, exactly.
And, you're doing that?
Doing the Stone in the city, doing the and I'm just trying to remember all the other gigs.
Cactus Club, San Jose.
Everything that we could get our feet into.
Santa Rosa.
And we'd already been going down to Southern California since the first two records.
Yeah, I read Lars said on a thing, Lars Ulrich, which I'm a Metallica freak. I never knew this quote ever, but he said he saw you guys at like a club, Troubadour or something maybe, and he was like, "That's the greatest band. I want to play rock because of that."
Yeah, it was a happening club in Los Angeles, where pretty much since we played there consistently at this one particular place, even today, I'll meet somebody in a band that I've never even met before. Like some, guitar player from a band that has been popular for 25 years now, but I never ever met the guy, right? And he'll come up to me and go, "Man, I used to see you in LA playing at, that place," right? And so that was the place, man. That was the place that
What was
Lars,
it called?
It was the Starwood.
Oh, the Starwood.
Yes.
Of course.
I totally spaced on it for a second.
Yeah.
I mean, that's been like on the tip of my tongue forever. And that,
What part of town was that on?
That was on La Cienega and Sunset.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
La Cienega and Sunset.
Yeah.
Well, that's crazy, man.
Yeah. It was a weird area, but it was this awesome club, and it had. It was pretty big. I mean, it probably held
Motley Crue would
probably
play
about
there.
600 people or something, right? But mostly on the floor, and then they had a balcony, and we would play there with bands like Argent and Sammy Hagar and stuff in the 70s, where we were all just coming up and doing our own thing. Right? Argent had already had "Hang Your Head Up High" or whatever the hell. And so they were already big. So we opened for them, and. God, I mean, there were all kinds of different bands that we opened for, and we opened for Journey there too.
Wow! And
so then all of a sudden we became headliners there, and we would play one night, 2 shows in one night. Then we'd play a weekend. Yeah. Then we would play Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Wow.
2 shows every night, sold out.
Yeah, and
it was that big for us to in L.A. And everywhere we went in L.A., people were mobbing to the shows, and that was in the 70s.
Now, after you're dropped, is this when you turn into Y&T and not Yesterday and Today?
Still Yesterday and Today.
Okay, gotcha.
Still Yesterday and Today through all of the 70s.
Yeah.
And then we were, doing a couple of demo tapes. A friend of Joey's girlfriend at the time said, "Hey, I know this guy, and he's got a 4-track recording studio in his house. Maybe he'll do a demo tape." We go over there and we do a demo tape, and so now we've got more songs, and we're trying to get them out to record companies.
Yep.
And it was slow going. We didn't have much of a management company that was really doing anything for us at that time because we had already dropped our current manager.
Yeah, the production team.
Yeah, the production team. Yeah.
What's on those demos? Is it Earthshaker stuff?
Some of it's Earthshaker stuff, and some of it's just bizarre stuff.
Wow.
Just stuff that that Phil had come up with some stuff, and like you said, there was new wave coming out that
so
time.
You're testing
so
some
he's
grounds.
Testing some stuff, new wave-ish kind of stuff, and I'm like, really? I don't know. But, let's go for it. Let's try it. And just by some weird chance, and we just were talking about this yesterday, and not that many people know about this, but because one of the very first show we ever played in L.A. area.
Yeah.
We opened up, and we didn't even have a record deal yet. I mean, this is because our management at the time was Herbie Herbert and Lou Ramey. They were these two guys that were managing this other new band called Journey.
Yeah,
at the
Herbie
time.
Herbert, king of BGP management.
Yeah. Right. So he was Journey, and so it was just us and Journey and their management company for a couple of years. And so we would play all these gigs with Journey. But because he had Journey and because he used to work for, all these other different bands and stuff, he had an in, and he got in with this company that was promoting a gig at the Santa Monica Civic, and it was Kiss, JoJo Gunn, and Yesterday and Today.
Wow!
So
you play with Kiss?
Yes, and
you play with all the great bands. I mean, Kiss isn't great now to me, but at that time,
and this was their first, one of their first headline tours, and so they were new on the market, but people knew about them. Obviously, they were big enough to be a headliner at this place, and there was like 3,000 people at this, cool little theater, and we were nobodies. We were playing mostly cover tunes with a few originals at that time, but we didn't have a record deal, so nobody really knew who the hell we were.
Yeah.
We were just these bizarre kids, man, up there playing and running around like madmen, jumping on stage and everything.
Yeah.
And we had our little day in the sun, one big show, and then we did a couple of things like that in the Bay Area. He also got us in to play with Journey at, these Sounds of the City gigs that like I said, that BGP would do. But so weird coincidence. The only reason I bring that up is that years later, in those late 70s, when we were still fishing for a record deal, we had done this demo tape at this guy's house, and we had a couple of rock and roll things and a couple of things that were more along the lines of sort of new wave, which I thought was weird, but we just we're trying at anything, and it ends up getting to to Kiss's bass player, right?
Oh, wow. Gene Simmons.
So Gene gets this thing,
Yeah.
and he calls and says, "Yeah, I heard your demo, man. It's pretty good. We should talk. I'm maybe interested in producing you guys."
This is like the Van Halen story,
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he did Van Halen's first demos, too.
Shit, I didn't
That's
even
what's
know
crazy. And then he shops them around, and everyone says no. And he said, "Good luck, guys," and just fucking moves on.
Well, he goes, "Call me back, man." So he gives me his number, and he goes, "Well, we're going to be on the road. I'll call you and give you the hotel number that we need to call when we're at this next hotel." And he goes, "And we all are under assumed names, so just call and ask for Dr. Sardonicus." So I'm like,
Dude,
okay.
you got great stories, man.
So I call the guy up, and it sounds like he was in a room with like 3 chicks waking up in the morning, and it was kind of like, Dave Meniketti, okay, so I've been thinking about it, man, and I got this idea. He goes, you should drop the Yesterday and a Day thing, man, and he goes, you should call yourself the something, like the Cars or the Sweet or the, and you should do pretty much all new wave music, man.
Wow.
And so at this point, right,
he's just looking for a casting.
Yeah, we'd already kind of had been playing some more shows at the Keystones and stuff like that, and we got all this material that's like coming, really good rockin' stuff.
Plus, you can't do the Yesterday and Today stuff. You're like alcohol, and then all of a sudden you're like, here in a car we go. All of a sudden you're Gary Newman.
Exactly, man. Exactly.
You got like a Meniketti with a mohawk.
Wow, how many people are we going to confuse? Yeah.
You got like those fucking missing person glasses. You know what I mean? You're up there like Dale Bozio.
So I just told him on the phone, I go, let me get back to you.
Yeah.
So I hang the phone up, and I remember that we were playing Keystone Berkeley that night, and I told the guys what he said, and I just and there was a little glimmer in a couple of the guys' eyes, but mostly it was kind of disappointment, and I just said, I'm not going to do that, man. We can't do that.
Yeah.
The fans that are coming out to see us, and we built this, amazing following in the Bay Area doing hard rock music, man.
Yeah.
We're not going to do this, and this is where our heart and soul is. We're not into that other stuff. So we just kept going forward and kept trying to get number one, to get decent management. And we found this older guy in L.A. and he kept, having us go down to L.A. and play, at the places that we were already big in, and a few other places. And he would try to get record company people out to, every gig that we could do.
What was that guy's name?
Bill Trout.
Bill Trout.
With an AU, yeah, Trout. And he was an interesting guy, man. I mean, he was an older guy, and we were kind of like, God, I don't know. It's like Grandpa's managing us, man. I mean, he wasn't that old, but to us he was.
You kids need to turn down. Oh man, I hear you, man.
But he had this cool office in 9000 Sunset Building.
Oh, that's a great fucking building.
Yeah, and up on the sixth floor or something.
Panoramic views.
Yeah, and I mean, he was managing other people, but it was mostly jazz artists and a couple other people and stuff like that, and people that I was like, well, God, I hope you can. But we were thinking, he talks a good talk, and he seems like a pretty together guy, and he was a good guy. He was a really good guy, but whatever. We kind of always got with these guys that weren't quite the right guys, But he got some guys out, and eventually he gets out, and every time that he'd get a guy out, or 2 or 3 guys were going to come to a show.
A&R guys.
Yeah, A&R guys. Either half the time they wouldn't show up.
Yeah.
Or they would show up and they'd never hear from them again.
Yeah, or they're just looking at chicks. They listen to one song and then they're like, go to the chicks here.
Exactly. But, we're thinking, how can these guys not get it? Number one, we're packing this place. We're selling out double shows a night.
Yeah.
And can't they figure that if there's something going on here, maybe that might happen elsewhere? Can't they get the vibe?
Isn't that crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because you're just like, you never understand people. It's like, it's already here. You don't have to do the work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The fucking people are here. You know how hard it is to even get 100 people to a club?
Right.
And you're selling out 3 nights in Hollywood?
Yeah. And so anyway, we're doing basically the Yesterday and a Day material and this new material that we'd been writing that was half stuff on Earthshaker to come.
Yeah.
And even a couple of things that might have made Black Tiger. But anyway, so it was going that way, and eventually we shoehorned our way into A&M Records, and it was literally a shoehorn to get it, and
it was almost like, we don't want to do it, but fuck it, let's try.
Well, yeah, it's like the record company was kind of like that, but the one A&R guy he kind of really liked the music, and he was a square dude, man, and I'm like, really, you really love me, and I want to produce your first record, and we're like, well, shit, if you can get us a deal, hell yes. You can produce the first record.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
So it was that kind of a thing. But, at the end of the day, we got a deal.
Does he produce the record?
He produces it along with this other guy that was a staff songwriter at A&M's publishing company that they owned. And he was the older brother of a gigantic Y&T fan that was a drummer and a huge fan of the band from the Bay Area.
Wow.
And so it was just this weird, thing that we had going on with that.
And where do you track the record at?
And we track it at the Automat, which is
sick.
San Francisco.
Yeah.
Which is CBS originally before that. And so we do the record.
How many days?
In probably a month and a half, probably something like that, 6 weeks.
What do you think it cost? 20,000?
Might have been 30,000, 20,000. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And are you leery at the time? Like, oh fuck, maybe it'll happen, or are you thinking we're on a major label now?
That's what we were thinking. A&M Records, man. I mean, my first album I ever bought was Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass on A&M, and of course he was the A of A&M, Herb Alpert. It was Herb Alpert and Jerry Moss was the 2 guys that had
and you can see the logo A&M and A&M is just like, it was so prestigious for 70s.
Yeah, it was. They had some good people on there, but they didn't have any hard rock. So we were their only hard rock band.
Wow.
So, again, another problem.
They don't know how to outlet
They don't know how to do anything for the band. But anyway, so we do that record, and it starts to get, a little bit of things. And of course, in the Bay Area, they're playing Rescue Me like it's going out of style.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, that tune is embedded in my head, and it really is just the epic Y&T tune.
Yeah.
It's the epic tune. When you hear it, it's just like, fuck, man. Listen, it's just the beginning, how you come in, just yourself, and then, I want you. Then the crowd just goes crazy, and you're like, fuck yeah. And the lyrics, from another time, feel so strange, it might be my, whatever.
Right, exactly,
it's like great. And you're just like, fuck yeah. I mean, that shit is bomb, man.
Yeah.
So they're playing that. but the A&M doesn't know how to work it across
No,
America.
they're not really doing too good of a job across the U.S. We go out on a tour, and I can't even remember what the tour was. And, but we were feeling, okay, well, there's a little bit of something going on. They were playing Rescue Me on, maybe 50, 60 stations across the country. Something was starting up. And I think they played another tune, too. I can't remember if it was maybe Dirty Girl or something like that. But so we eventually, started moving on to thinking about the next record. And A&M comes up with this brilliant plan. Well, little did we know, the reason it was brilliant is because they knew more about what was happening outside of the U.S. than we did.
Right, like Europe markets.
Because the A&M of Europe and the A&M of the U.K. and the A&M of Japan are kicking ass with our record.
Yeah.
And we didn't know it.
Wow.
I mean, we had heard some stuff like that, there's might be some little interest overseas still for you guys or whatever, but we were kind of like sheltered from that. We had no idea, man.
I've talked to bands where they said they're out on the fucking road, like Iron Maiden and shit, and they have no idea. This isn't cell phones or computers, and their song is like number 14,
right?
And they have no idea, and all of a sudden they show up at a gig and it's sold out. They're going, what the fuck? That's what Rudy told me on Quiet Riot. They had no idea that record was selling through the roof.
Exactly.
And then they get to like Florida, and they're like, well, there's 5,000 people here.
Right.
Because the labels aren't telling you, like, hey, we're cleaning up on you fucking guys.
Right, exactly. They're not saying anything. So they had a brilliant idea. They said, why don't you guys, we're going to get you together with an engineer that's going to produce your record. He engineered the latest Ozzy Osbourne record, and they recorded it at this place outside of London.
Oh, Max Norman?
Max Norman.
Oh.
Right. So Max comes out to do pre-production at our rehearsal studio in Hayward, and they're going to bring us back to the UK, and we're going to record it the same place he does the Ozzy stuff, right?
Wow.
And so we're like, we've never been outside of the country before. So this is going to be a new experience. So I guess, it was a brilliant move on A&M's part because they knew that their American company wasn't doing shit for us.
Yeah.
And they figured, well, hell, let's go where they're probably doing well, or maybe their people are, they're selling more records. And so they bring us over there to do the record, and they have this other brilliant idea that halfway through us making the record over there, they're going to get a local promoter to book a string of shows in the UK and see how that goes.
So they're actually doing good shit.
Yeah, they're actually doing something for us. So I'm like but we didn't know. We didn't know what was happening, And the first day we go there, we meet the A&M rep in London, and this guy's a really cool guy. And he's like, yeah, man, we're doing pretty well with the Earthshaker record. It's doing okay. And we're like, oh, really? We didn't ask about sales. We didn't know what was going on.
Before you go any further, I just want to establish this. Still zero money, right?
Oh, yeah.
Zero fucking money.
Oh, yeah.
And we're
broke.
talking 6 years, 7 years as a band.
Yeah.
Well, 3 records.
Yeah.
You got the 2 yesterday and today's. You got Earthshaker. No fucking money.
No money.
Okay.
No money.
Just wanted to lay that down because people, they don't understand.
No.
They're thinking, well, he's on A&M now. They must have got a deal for...
I remember I was driving, the car that I had at the time, and it was like a $200 car, right? I mean, I bought it used, and it, it had... some primer on the side and stuff like that. And I remember some fans saw me, driving up to a show one time and go, where's the Mercedes, man?
Yeah, right? People think that.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man.
And I didn't say anything, but, there you have it. And so we're there, and luckily they got like one of the top guys that was a booking agent in London.
Yeah.
And this guy has got us on like a 12-date tour going through the UK while we're taking a break from in the middle of recording this record.
Right. And
so before we're going to do that, we're going to go across to Dover and get on a boat and on a ferry and go over to do this big festival in Holland first before we do it, right? And it's called the Pink Pop Festival.
Yeah, Pink Pop.
And so there's 50,000 people there.
Wow.
And we didn't know yet. We know that it's a festival and it's going to be pretty big.
Yeah.
And we're like, fuck, we're ZZ Top's on the bill.
Yeah.
And this is going to be awesome. And we're like, third from the top or something.
That's like Eliminator record, right? Like the big one.
I don't even remember.
Yeah.
Man,
it's got to be like, what are we talking, 82?
It was 82.
That's like Legs, she's got legs. That's the big fucking ZZ Top.
Right. So we're in this bus taking us there. And I mean, not like a tour bus, just a bus that they got us, from when we got into Calais, France, and that took us to Holland, and here we are, and we're going to the show in the afternoon, and we see all of these rock fans in leather and friggin' denim, man.
Yeah.
And they've all got denim or leather jackets, and they've got these patches of bands on
like Saxon.
Exactly. And there's some of these guys that have Y&T patches on their back, and we're like, and we're all like, look at that guy over there.
Yeah, that's got to be so exciting.
That was so exciting. It's like, wow, there's a couple people that might know us, right? So we get on stage.
You remember what you opened with?
I don't remember what we opened.
Because I remember
it might have been Hurricane.
Yeah,
it might have been Hurricane or something. But anyway, so we get on stage, and little did we know that the record company had paid for a little prop plane to go overhead while we were on stage with a thing saying Earthshaker, Dirty Girl, or something like Earthshaker or something like that. Talking about the Earthshaker record, right? And so we're on stage. And there's all these people out there. I mean, a mass of people. We'd never played for
50,000.
Never played for people like that. The most we played for was maybe 5,000.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about this mass of people. And we're in another country playing our very first show ever in another country. And there's all these people out there, and they made up banners, and some of them said "Dirty Girl," and they're holding it up. And we're like, and we're playing, and they're getting off on us, and we're like, cool, this is great, You got
to be going crazy,
it was
right?
good.
Like,
it was
holy
good.
shit, we're moving here.
Yeah, we're cool. So we go backstage, and it's interview time.
Yeah.
And these guys are interviewing us, and this one guy is from, I think, Kerrang or something like that. I can't remember.
Stephen Shirazi or someone like that.
I don't even remember.
That mag was God.
Yeah. And he goes, did you know that the Earthshaker record was picked the #1 rock record last year?
Wow.
In the magazine. And I said, no, I didn't know. He goes, Holland had voted Earthshaker as the #1 rock record last year. Oh. And I'm like, nobody told us. We didn't know, man.
That's crazy.
It was absolutely crazy. We were already semi-famous in a country that we'd never even known about.
Yeah, it's like Cheap Trick with Budokan,
Right.
They go to Japan, they don't sell shit here. They go to Japan, and they're like, what the fuck? And then they record live at Budokan and get big here. But yeah, it's the same thing. And there's, like I keep saying, there's no internet, there's no cell phones, there's nothing, No. All the guy had to do was just like make one call and go, hey, it's killing over here. And you would know, but you don't know.
But you don't know. So we go back and we do this UK tour, and this big guy has done this tour for us, and he was, he didn't know whether it was going to go well or not, and we were playing mostly clubs and, like I said, a couple of small halls, and we went out, and one of the first places we played was this small club in London that was known for. It was on this Wardour Street, and it was known for that the Beatles had played there.
Oh, the Marquee?
The Marquee.
Yeah.
Right, and the Rolling Stones and stuff like that.
Yeah, Marquee Club, super famous.
So we played there, and it was really hot, unseasonably hot.
Yeah.
It was the summertime, but still, it's not always hot in the summer in London.
No, it's shit over there.
So it's hot, and we get into this place. And they rammed it. I mean, they put as many people as they possibly could, and then put another 15 or 20.
Yeah.
To where they're literally, crammed against the back wall.
Yeah.
So it's about 150 degrees inside the club, and I mean it really is. And it was so hot. We used to have these old fashioned guitar stands that had sort of like this surgical rubber. Right.
Yeah.
It melted. It melted against the back of the neck of the guitar.
Yeah, and takes the nitrocellulose off your fucking neck.
Holy shit. I mean, I came backstage after that, and I was laying down, and I was having a heat stroke thing.
Oh, man.
Because they had this gigantic spotlight that was like
a torch
100 feet away from me in an already blazing hot club.
Yeah.
And they turned the thing on me, and I was melting. I mean, it was nuts. So anyway, we play the gig, and the people from the show say, by the way, that's the most people we've ever put in this club since the history of the club.
Whoa, and we're talking Stones.
And of course, they could have done it before for other people, but they just, I guess, decided fuck it, let's just sell a few more tickets, and because they got people that are waiting to buy tickets and there's not enough. Not enough people that they could throw in there. Well, throw some more. So that got us the distinctive, honor of setting the attendance record at this dinky club, and which is kind of a strange thing to say. But yeah. But anyway, so we go on and we play the rest of these places, and we're going all the way up north, and we go all the way into Scotland. We play Glasgow, and we play Edinburgh, and we come in, and we play everywhere, and we're fucking ramming every place we go, and these people are manic for us.
Yeah.
And we're like, holy shit, we're like famous here, I mean,
to me, it's like the Catania Cabaret in Europe, though, because you felt famous there to me,
Exactly, man. I mean, it was maybe only 300 people or 500 or 800 people at some places, but it was rammed. And these people were not just into us, they were crazy into us.
Yeah.
And how happy they were that a band from America, before they made it in America, came over there and played in their backyard.
Yeah, man.
And cared enough to do it. And so, of course, the guy that had booked us, is going crazy. And so he adds an extra show at the end of it to go back to the marquee again and play. Yeah. Well, they put at least the same, if not more people in this time.
Yeah, word of mouth.
It was
now
ridiculous.
It's fire.
Yeah, so ridiculous. So then we go, now we're like on fire in our minds, and we're going to go back to the place to finish off the record, in Surrey, England. And we're like, now we're on fire, man. We are really, really like, we've got this whole thing behind us now. We know, we're going to finish this
you
record.
Got full confidence.
It's full confidence, and maybe a little bit more of a vibe than we had going in.
Yeah.
Because
now on that run, were you playing stuff on Black Tiger?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so sick. So now you're even getting the tunes. You're feeling out the tunes.
Absolutely.
And, that's cool.
So we're that much better when we get back there. And we finish up the record. We go home, and this agent says, "I just got you on one of our biggest festivals, and it's called the Reading Festival."
Oh man!
And he goes, "Not only did I get you on the Reading Festival, but he gets us second to the headliner or third to the headliner. I can't remember.
Yeah.
And it was a 2-day affair, and it was 2 different stages, and we were on the main stage."
Yeah.
2 before, and I think it was who was it? Come on, the guitar player from UFO.
Schenker.
It was a MSG.
MSG.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So MSG was headlining this thing.
Wow.
And so we're 2 before him, and perfect timing. It's just starting to get dark.
Yeah.
But then it storms. A storm comes in, and it's crazy. And it instead of making some of the people like, oh man, they were like more into it.
Oh
now,
yeah,
so,
they love rain. I mean, they don't love it, but they're used to it.
Right,
man, it rains all the festivals.
Exactly.
And then there's even a weird thing like with Metallica, if they threw bottles of piss at you, it meant they loved you. You're like, what?
And we'd never done a European or a UK festival before, well, except for the one in Holland.
Yeah,
right.
But that's not
that nobody threw anything. But they warned us in advance. You might get coins tossed at you, or piss, bottles of piss, or whatever. Anyway, we play, and by this time there was such a vibe on the band because it had been a couple months or a month and a half or whatever after we had done that one tour that we were like the most talked about band on that thing.
Yeah.
Everybody was looking for it. Everybody was ready to interview us and all that kind of stuff. And we did this thing. And it went off really well. We go backstage and everything, and we did a bunch of interviews, and we met Pete way back there. He was all drunk, hanging out in our backstage thing, and I don't remember if they told us that night or it was a couple of days later. It might have been a couple of days later that somebody told us. Our management said some of the guys from AC/DC's management were there.
Wow.
And they remember when you guys toured 3 shows in Texas in the 70s with Bon Scott.
Wow. Now, you did some...
Yeah, I got to tell you that one,
look
too.
at this Bon Scott tattoo.
Oh, man. Awesome.
Yeah, that's an absolute god to me right there. We'll get into that later.
Right.
But, man, you played with Bon Scott.
So not only did we play with Bon Scott, I'll divert from the story for a second.
Right.
We played 3 shows in Texas because Texas, which I didn't get into... became a stronghold for us in the early days,
like Quiet Riot,
in the Yesterday and a Day days.
Ozzy, when they first dropped Blizzard, Rudy said that Texas was so big they did like 12 dates in Texas, like a full tour of Texas.
Wow.
You know, like every day they were playing like El Paso, then they play like Houston, then they play some little shit town, then they did Austin, then Dallas, then you know, and it was full rock. You know,
it was cool. And there was a guy in San Antonio called Joe he was like an icon on the radio out there.
Yeah.
And he was the DJ. And if Joe Anthony liked a band and played the band all the time and people would call in and they loved what he was playing, then he would just keep playing them. And he'd go deeper into them and he'd play more tracks and that stuff like that. So we show up in San Antonio the first time we played there. We showed up in San Antonio. And we were doing like clubs, basically.
Yeah.
You know, we were doing like a couple hundred people at a club and playing Tucson and, you know, and Tulsa and all these different places along the way. We show up in San Antonio and we are playing the Civic Auditorium, 5,400 people, and we fucking jam the place. Wow. And we're like, what just happened? Yeah. So because of that, Jack Orban was the promoter, and he just like, you know, it was because Joe Anthony, man, he made you guys superstars in San Antonio.
Wow.
You know, and it kind of had gone out to a couple other areas in Texas. So that's what happened. So when we came back around, he put us with the AC/DC.
What era? 78, 79?
It was probably 78.
So Power Age, like
exactly.
And one before Highway to Hell.
One of the first tours that they were doing in the States.
Wow. Did you hang with Bon?
So check this out. So the first show we're going to play, and you know, and there are three hall places, you know, 5,000 people, maybe 3,000, you know, depends on the hall, and so they show up. And I'm talking with Angus, and Angus is talking about, you know, how his hearing is almost completely gone back then in the 70s, right?
Yeah, he's like 18,
exactly,
16, 17,
right? Because they play so fucking loud on stage.
Yeah, just those 100-watt plexis on 10.
Oh my God! And they used everything.
Yeah,
they had two Marshalls each.
Yeah,
and they had, you know, full stacks.
No
and
dummy
they used
cabs.
all four cabinets.
Yeah,
you know?
no dummy cabs.
Right, no dummies, man. So they're talking and this and that, and then the talk comes down after the show, and Bon asks one of the guys in the band, I think, he goes, "So what are you guys traveling in?"
Oh yeah,
and we go, "Well, we got this Dodge van."
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Would you mind if I hang with you guys
in your van?"
In our van.
Whoa.
So.
No.
He hangs with us for the 3 shows in our van.
No way.
And we're traveling from the next town to the next town with Bon in the fucking van.
What the fuck was that?
Because he told us that basically that the guys in D.C. were they didn't want a lot of rowdy shit going down on the bus.
Yeah.
So they didn't want a lot of drinking. They weren't gonna go from gig to gig with a bunch of fucking groupies in the bus.
Yeah.
And Bon wants to party.
Yeah. That's insane.
And of course Leonard.
Yeah.
You know, and Joey and Phil and the crew. You know, I mean, I'm still straight at this point, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just watching. I'm not one way or the other. I'm just watching this whole thing go down.
They're just in the van getting high.
They're in the van getting high, and we'd stop and get gas, and Bon and Leonard would go into, you know, the liquor store or the gas station, and they'd come back with a bottle of Jack, and they'd be fucking hammering themselves in between the shows.
And Bon just wearing the same clothes the whole time, right?
Man, totally, man.
Yeah. Does he have anything, like a bag with him or anything?
I don't even remember.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
There's so much of it that is like a blur.
Yeah.
That I almost don't even remember too much about it, except that we were there and we were doing it. And here's how this van was. We bought a brand new Dodge van.
Yeah.
And it had the front bench seat, and it had a bench seat in the back. And it was an extended van.
Yep.
And in between all of that was a super padded shag carpet.
Yeah.
That was how it came from the factory, right? So half of us are sitting on the floor on a shag carpet
just
with padding.
Chill
That's
on the
it,
floor.
man.
And where's your gear? In the van?
It was in another van.
Oh, yeah.
Another
okay,
van. A friend of ours had a van, and he had all the gear in that one.
Dude, Bon in the van, man. That is insane. You got any photos?
I don't.
God.
You know, I wonder if any of the other guys do.
I don't know,
because at that time, of course, we didn't have our phones with us. We didn't have cameras, and we weren't taking pictures.
No.
So I hope somebody did. I don't know. I never did talk to anybody about that. I'll find out. But anyway, so we play the Reading Festival.
And
now
the
to go back.
management's there.
So in 1982, we play the Reading Festival after we've done this short tour, through the UK, and people were like on fire. They're waiting for it. And by this time now, we finished the record.
Yeah.
Now the record, I can't remember if it had been released yet or not, or if it was just before it got released. But we did this festival, and a couple days later, our management calls us and said, "Wouldn't you know it, man? These guys, a couple of guys from the AC/DC camp were there, and they remember you guys from that tour, that 3-date tour that you did in Texas.
Insane.
And they want you guys because they know that you guys were hot on the bill, and people are talking about you.
Yeah.
That you're the new hot commodity kind of thing, amongst probably a couple other bands, but." That we were there, and we were in their face, and that's like, this is perfect. They just asked you if you want to come back in a month and do the AC/DC tour for those about to rock tour through the UK.
Yeah.
So it's going to be about 3 weeks or 4 weeks. I don't remember what it was, somewhere in that lane.
Yeah.
And it was about October, November. So we come back. Full on fire now because the Black Tiger record is out.
Yeah.
It's doing well.
Yeah.
And it's getting, great reviews all over in all the magazines, all the magazines in Europe and so on and so forth. And we were doing pretty well in the States. We were starting to pick up more, radio station stuff. So anyway, so we go out on this tour, and we're like a kid in a candy store.
Man, right?
For those about to rock, the cannons in the back.
First of all, I think it's the best tour they ever did. I always tell people I saw it at the Cow Palace 3 nights.
Oh, you did?
And, yeah, and I'll show you some photos. I met him on that tour.
Oh, cool.
Sheila Renee took me backstage.
Oh, Sheila.
Yeah, and I was like a kid. She's like, you want to meet him? I'm going to interview him. I go, oh, fuck yeah. Look, I got goosebumps because I was losing my mind. I'm like a kid, right? And I'm like, holy shit. But the great thing of that tour was before they had Back in Black, which is a massive hit, but Brian would still have to sing some of the older tunes.
Right.
Now they have For Those About to Rock and Back in Black. So most of the set is these tunes.
Exactly.
So now you're getting his comfort and his style and the cannons and the fucking sound.
It was awesome.
It was epic, right?
It was epic.
You got to imagine you got your band with Earthshaker and Black Tiger.
I know.
Which are both like top to bottom, no filler.
Yeah.
It's got to be insane.
It was cool, man. and here's a cool little story I tell you. First date was in Birmingham. And we had just flown in the night before. So we didn't have time to get over the jet lag thing.
Yeah.
And we're flying back and forth to England, all over the place to do that, Reading Festival and then back to do this. And so, we're kind of getting used to, the burnout, but we're still not really, it's still a burnout. And we are ready to go on stage after the, well, not ready yet. We do our sound check and the guys in AC/DC's crew, they come up to us because it's just the two of us. There's no other bands, right? And he goes, I got to tell you something. He goes, anybody that opens for AC/DC in Europe, and especially in England, he goes, just be prepared. They're gonna be shouting out AC/DC's name all through your set.
Yeah.
They're gonna be booing you. They're gonna be throwing coins at you.
Yeah, coins.
Yeah.
God,
and it's going to hurt.
Big old England coins.
Exactly.
Pounds. They're like a big fucking flying saucer of metal at your eyes.
Exactly. So it was basically like, you got the tour, but just don't
Good
expect
luck.
much. Yeah, don't expect much. They're going to be dying to get AC/DC on stage. They don't give a fuck about you. Right. So we go on stage. Nobody throws a thing. People are going fucking crazy, and they gave us a fucking encore.
Whoa, man.
And so we go out and do an encore, and we're looking at these crew guys. They're standing on the side of the stage watching this, and we come off stage, and they're literally like fucking shocked.
They all got bets. Like, what song you think Dave gets hit with a fucking coin?
Oh, you're absolutely right, man.
You know what I mean?
They're just dying to just give these Yanks some shit. Man.
Yeah.
And wait till they see what it's like. Yeah. And we come off, and they're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
That's never happened. Man.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe tonight. Not tomorrow.
Yeah.
It was the way for the whole set. The whole fucking tour. So anyway.
That sounds like a dream concert
awesome.
to me.
It was awesome. So we get done to the last show and of the tour, and it's in Dublin, Ireland. And we get off stage, and Ozzy Osbourne and Sharon are waiting for us in our dressing room as we get off stage. And I'd never met those guys. I didn't even know they were there, anything like that. The rest of the guys had gone through first, and I'm the last guy, and I come through. And Ozzy gets in front of me, and he gets down on his knees, and he goes, "Will you please join my band, Dave? Will you please join my band?" And his wife's standing right next to him.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the guys in the dressing room who are like 20 feet in front of me. They're watching this thing go down, and I'm like, "Oh, man, this is weird."
Yeah.
This is a weird thing. So
that's funny, because I was going to ask you if any famous bands ever tried to poach you.
Right.
Because you were such the fucking king. You got background, so you could be a background singer and king lead player. Like, almost you could have played in Thin Lizzy.
Right.
You know, you could have played in all those kind of bands, you know.
Right.
Oh, so Randy dies, and they're asking you
Randy
to join.
dies, and they've got this guitar player that's playing with them right now.
Or Brad Gillis.
Brad Gillis.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Yeah, I've got this Brad guy," and he goes, you know, and this is no slight on Brad, but,
of course.
But what he's telling me is something. You know, he goes, "Man," he goes, "you would just be perfect in this band." He goes, "Brad's such a square. I have to show him how to dress like a rock star, and I've got to grab his hair and pull him around the stage because he just stands there." He goes, "You're all over the place. You're kicking, and you're wild." And, you know, I mean, I was just out of my mind.
Yeah, you had great moves, man.
Right.
Like in Y&T, I was like,
you know,
this motherfucker.
that was it, man. And you know, and I just looked at him, and I thought, respectfully, thank you so much for the offer, but we're on fire, man.
Yeah.
This is our thing. You know, this is the start of something huge for us. You know, I mean, I just can't do it, man. I got to follow my heart, and this is it. So, a couple days later, that thing's over, and we're back to the U.S., and management calls and says they want you back for the European now.
Wow.
So you got to go back in a week.
Yeah.
And the European tour starts, and another 3 weeks all throughout Europe. And this time I bring my wife with me because she never comes, you know.
Right.
And
how long have you guys been married?
we were not married yet.
How long have you guys been going out?
We had been going out for about 3 months. 4 months?
No, but I mean now. What are we talking?
We're married for 31 years.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
So, like, everything about you is so like the non-cliche of rock.
Exactly.
No overdose. Same woman.
Yeah.
Still got your voice and hair.
Right.
And you're 61. You look fucking great, man. Like, it's so. You're like Dick Clark or
Clark.
Eric Martin. You're like Eric Martin. Man.
Eric Martin.
Yeah.
He never fucking ages, man.
That kid fucking was 40.
I know.
ID'd.
He looks like he's 12.
Yeah.
So anyway, we go back and we do the European tour. And while we were out there doing it, oh no, that was in Aussie. That was the next year. So anyway, so it was just perfect.
Yeah.
And so that set us up. So the next year we do the Mean Streak record. We go back to the UK and we're full-blown headliners now.
Yeah.
Now we're playing maybe not every venue that we played with AC/DC, maybe the next venue down, or some the same.
Yeah.
So we were playing 2,000 to 5,000 seat places and a couple of 1,000 seat places, but they were all. It was all big, and we had this girl band that was opening up for us. It wasn't
Vixen.
No, it wasn't Vixen. It was a UK band. It was I want to say Girl School, but it wasn't. I can't remember the name right now, but anyway, they were really good. It was a trio, and
now we're in what? What are we?
83. 83.
I'm a sophomore in high school.
Okay.
Oh no, sorry, junior in high school.
So we go there, and we're headlining. We're legitimate headliners in 83.
But now, are you still tripping because you're not killing in the U.S. yet?
Well,
because my main question for you, of course, is everybody says this. Oh man. They never got huge. That's always the thing that comes after Y&T. But what I always battle them with is I'll take that career over huge because huge comes down no matter, except for maybe 10 people.
Exactly.
You know, AC/DC, Scorpions, Metallica, all the other ones. There's not a fucking band in my CD thing from the 80s other than GNR, who's just Axl now, and Scorpions and Motley Crue that are still playing.
Exactly.
So anyway, I'm just asking that because...
she's smiling. My wife is smiling because I just said this the other day to somebody. I said that when, you know, at the end of the day, all we were done, you know, everybody in the U.S., of course, always asking, you know, to this day.
Yeah.
You know, how come you guys, I could never understand why you guys weren't bigger, you know, in the 80s and stuff like that.
You know?
Yeah. And you know, and I mean, that's so old to me. I mean, I've been through that for decades. And you know, I'm like, whatever. But
people don't look at the golden of it, though, what I'm saying.
No. And I said the exact same thing that you said. I said, here's the deal. Van Halen was opening for Y&T
Yeah.
in L.A. at the Starwood before they were signed. Okay, the very first show that Motley Crue played in Los Angeles was opening for Y&T at the Starwood. It's in their book.
Yeah.
You know, very first show. Okay, now these bands and a lot of other bands like Poison, and I could name a bunch more that opened for Y&T and then passed us up as far as record sales and being a headliner, right? So I use Rat for an example. The drummer, Bobby from Rat, was a huge Yesterday and Today fan. He would come to every show we played in L.A., and he was a Leonard, you know, God. Leonard was God, right? Of
course.
And so he would come so often, and he was such a funny guy, and he'd always tell jokes and stuff. He was like a friend. Yeah. So he was a fan, but he was a friend. And then eventually, years later, he goes, "Hey man, I got in this new band, and we're called Rat, and we're pretty good, you know." And then of course, then they got signed and so on and so forth. I go, now here's an example. Rat was a band of guys that were fans of the band.
Yep.
They went so far past us.
Yeah.
And just fucking kicked ass. And 3 albums later, they're dead in the dirt.
Disintegrated.
Completely dead in the dirt.
And that's because of massive instant fame. People don't understand. You don't know how to fucking get ready for that. Then you got all kinds of weird drama in the band.
Right.
And then people are over you and they're like long gone. But you had built a grassroots thing like Metallica.
Yeah.
And what people don't understand is I've been on stage 32 years of my life, you know,
Cool.
25 comedian. And now I'm like, you know, on the 6 years. Yeah. When you're on stage for 30 years, 40 years, 45, let's say, what they don't understand is we've made it.
Yeah.
It's not monetary. It's happiness, and it's not working. To me, it's construction in the sun or fucking just, you know, telemarketing. You know what I'm saying? Or this.
Dude, man, can I just bring you with me everywhere?
Dude, I'd go anywhere with you, dude. You're a fucking favorite, man.
Oh, dude, that is so funny.
But you can't ever judge. You can't judge fame. When you judge fame, you're an idiot because Zappa had some of the biggest fans ever. Was he the biggest band ever? No. But does he still have people that fucking worship him? Yeah. And by the music.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you're 61 years old. There's not a 61-year-old that any of these listeners know right now when they're listening to it that is doing what they want to do.
Right.
They're like, oh, my 61-year-old uncle, dad, or whatever has a fucking job he hates, or he's dead. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Or he's dead. I'm not being fucking dark here, but
no. You're just talking exactly what's true.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah.
So you get Mean Street. You got 3 records out on A&M, and now they're coming at you like, we need a hit in the U.S.
Yeah. Well, Mean Streak by itself, it was the first video that we did.
Yeah.
And it got played reasonably on MTV. Not a ton, but it got a decent amount. And we had some good touring in the States. So it was a first single that actually got over 100 stations across the U.S.
Wow.
So
it's such a great song.
It was actually starting to work now for once, you know. And the thing about that is that we got some good tours that we were on at the same time. We did a Dio tour.
Wow.
And a few others as well. And you know, it was like 3 different tours, and we were getting out there, and it was going pretty damn good. So we weren't quite there yet, but it was damn good. And now, of course, now A&M is seeing the potential because they say, okay, well, you guys are selling pretty good, you know, decent amount of record sales in the States. You're doing the business, and you got, you know, maybe about half of the radio stations that would have been enough to get you a hit.
Totally.
Yeah, and so.
And this is a great era of rock, but people don't understand. People say Bon Jovi came out right now. The first record, 7,800 Fahrenheit or whatever, it sold flies.
Yeah.
They would have never got to New Jersey if it's the record deals now. You know, they go, they sold 200,000. Next.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so they're really, you're on your fucking, going on to your 4th record.
Yeah.
And man, talk about building. Like, how great is that?
It was great. It was great. And so we do In Rock We Trust. We do the record with the first time ever that A&M had hired a songwriter guy to come out and write songs with us. And we were offended, you know, and we were like, we can come up with the stuff, man. We can, we've got good songs.
You do. That's what's crazy.
But to them, we didn't have the song.
The money song.
Yeah, we didn't have the money song. So we just did our thing, and we said, okay, all right, because even though we were established in areas and we were getting places, we were still, paranoid for our lives, man.
Yeah.
That if we didn't do the right thing or what the record company wanted to do, we're going to be looking for another record deal again. And the last one took us 3 years to get,
Yeah. And now we're in the 80s where you wouldn't get another one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so cutthroat.
It would have been very difficult.
Totally.
Yeah. So we're like, okay, all right, let's see what happens. So this guy shows up at our rehearsal studio in Hayward, and he's this big, tall guy, skinny, and he's about as outrageous, and he's kind of like a comedian in a way. I mean, he's super fast with a wit, super fast, funny guy, but intense.
Wow.
At the same time. You know? And he comes in, and we thought, maybe this will be okay because they showed, A&M sent us this song that he had written for somebody else, which was, who was it now? It was Lita Ford.
Oh, Lita Ford.
He wrote a song called "You Gotta Let Go."
Oh, yeah.
It was a good song. Yeah. And we go, okay, well, that's a good song. Let's check him out.
Yeah.
So he comes down. First thing, I was playing this riff when he came in.
Did he play instruments?
He did.
Okay, cool.
He did. So I was playing the riff to "Rock and Roll's Gonna Save the World," right?
Yeah.
And he comes in and literally almost, opens the door. We were already rehearsing for like an hour, and instead of like, hey everybody, let's talk and meet each other and feel each other out, he comes in and goes, "Oh, that's a good riff, man. Here, let me see what and he starts getting into it,
just taking over your songwriting
and taking over with the songs, man,
getting his name on every one,
man, right off the. But he had good ideas,
Oh, that's great.
It's like kings and queens and presidents, and I was like, whoa, that he didn't come up with that line right there, but he came up with that melody, where I wasn't thinking that melody at that particular moment. I was thinking something else, and it was like, oh, yeah.
I'm like that when I hear other people's songs. They'll come in with things, and then I hear a different melody. Right. That's what makes great songwriting teams.
Right.
Because you're going, oh, I got something right here. Go to this, and then you can come up with it. But, yeah, all right.
And by this time, Phil had already established himself as the quintessential lyricist.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I was still writing lyrics, but he was writing the majority of them. And so here comes this guy, filled with ideas and a nonstop personality. He's kind of like the guy that you can't unwind this dude.
Yeah.
I mean, once
he's
gets
like
started,
Sam Kinison.
Yeah, exactly.
Comes in, he's like, you know what I mean?
Exactly, man.
He's a summertime girl. Yeah.
Well, he didn't do that.
No,
but anyway, So he's like a friggin', a storm came through, man, and it's going 100 miles an hour, and of course, Phil is like getting pushed back a little bit because he's got brilliant ideas too for lyrics, And so finally, we calm the thing down a little bit and go, look, man, you got to respect what we got going on here too, And so Phil and him would write together, and he understood what Phil had, but Phil was a methodical kind of guy.
Yeah.
He would sit and he would think about it for days, sometimes weeks.
Just tinkering each line.
Yeah, exactly. Just getting it down and really getting into it. And almost living the life of what that song was about and stuff like that. And this guy Jeff was just like, oh yeah, man, here, check this out. And he'll just write something down 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Oh, and then he'll think of something brilliant right off the top of his head. So it was coming in a different way for him.
Like lightning, just channeling through. There's guys like that.
Yeah.
They can just come in and throw out lyrics. You're like, what the fuck?
Exactly, man. And so that was the kind of thing that was the dynamic that was going down. It was Phil on his pace and Jeff at his pace and me at my pace and the rest of us, And so we're just, so anyway, as it turned out, it was a really good record, good songs, and we liked what he did with some of the songs, but of course he brought us in a totally different, well, not totally different. I'll just say he brought us around the corner from where we were.
Yeah.
We were doing more basic, straight in your face kind of rock and roll stuff, and he was refining us.
He understood radio hooks and stuff.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Although you have catchy songs, I had Holly Knight on my show, which has been one of the biggest episodes I've had. She's wrote like 40 hit songs. You know, she wrote You Better Be Good to Me, Tina Turner, and Simply the Best. She wrote shit for Bon Jovi, Kiss.
Right.
There's people that understand, here's a hook, and this is how it works.
Exactly. So we get this record done, and they release Don't Stop Running, and we do another video for that, second video now. And based on all the 100, radio stations, 100 plus or whatever it was, 120 that we had from Mean Streak, now this thing's out, and it's kicking ass actually, and we're up to 180, radio stations now.
Now, did he help write Don't Stop Running?
He helped write some of the lyrics for that.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I'm just asking, at the end of the day, do you think that it helped the band?
I think it did in one, if nothing else, regardless of what parts of each song he wrote, I think it made us more mature as to what to do next as songwriters.
Right.
Because not to use them as a template, but just use some of the stuff that we weren't thinking in the way he was thinking.
Yeah. You learn stuff from people.
You just learn stuff. You do, exactly. And it was the same way that as a guitar player, if I'd play a show somewhere with some other guitar player that I really admired, and I sat there and just watched him, doing it at sound check and then playing live is different than listening on the record.
Yeah.
You're seeing how he's playing. You're getting the vibe of what he's doing. And it somehow filters in somewhere, even if you're not directly ripping them or doing anything. It just something
you take it all in. That's why guys, when they get older, become really fucking great because they've taken in so much stuff.
Exactly. And so that's what was happening, I think, with Jeff, was that we had become more experienced songwriters.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. And anyway, so we do that record, and we've got one hell of a great tour going on, and we're out there with Twisted Sister, which to some people on the West Coast would think, well, that's not that big of a tour.
They're huge.
They were huge at that time.
Hell yeah.
And we were playing the Coliseums.
Wow.
And it was Twisted Sister, Y&T, and any number of opening acts. They changed over
whatever the new bands were.
Yeah. Well, Lita Ford did a week and a half with us. We played even a couple of shows with Rat in there. We played a few shows with Bon Jovi, stuff like that. So it was interesting. I mean, we really did a lot of interesting stuff, right? And anyway, so it was a long tour, and we got some great stuff. And then we co-headlined when we got it closer to the West Coast,
right?
Where
co-headlined.
they were, because they were
Summertime
not as
Girls
big.
is out.
No, Summertime wasn't out yet.
Wow.
So we go play the Bay Area. And we swapped headlining.
Wow!
So Y&T's headlining and Twisted's opening for us, and Lita Ford opening, the show, and we play the San Francisco Civic, San Jose Civic, and then we go down to L.A. and we play a couple of shows down there, and we fucking rammed the San Francisco Civic, and our manager had worked something out with MTV that they were going to film the thing for MTV.
Oh yeah.
And so they film it, and it becomes a VHS tape that you could buy.
That's
right. Right. So that ended up being a really big thing for us as well. But when you saw us on stage, and you see that video, and you see our stage set, and the massive crowd that we would draw, and years later we would end up headlining the Conquer Pavilion on Halloween.
Oh yeah,
and put in 10,000 plus people, man. It's like we did make it in the Bay Area.
You did make it.
Yeah, and so that was awesome. So we go back to the next record, and we've just done this great bunch of tours with everybody, and we're kicking ass. And by the way, speaking because we had mentioned his name earlier, we were out on this tour in the East Coast, and our management gets a phone call from somebody and says, "We want you on Dick Clark's bandstand tomorrow."
Wow.
And we had 2 days off between shows.
Yeah.
And so we had to get up early in the morning and take like a 6 a.m. flight so that we could get there in time to shoot his show in the afternoon.
Right.
And we did Don't Stop Running and Lipstick and Leather.
Oh, Lipstick and Leather. Forgot about that too. Lipstick and Leather. I forgot about that.
It was so cool, man.
Wow. And you're just lip syncing, right?
And we're lip syncing.
It's so weird to watch that back in the day.
Dick does an intro to us before we come out on stage, and he's sitting in the crowd with the crowd, and he said,
"Oh, I love that.
Have you ever heard of this? London, England, and there was this place in London, England, where the Rolling Stones, and he tells the story about the marquee and how we set the attendance record, right? And which is a weird thing, like I said.
Yeah.
And anyway, so he and then he intros the band, and here they are, and we're on friggin' American Bandstand, man.
Yeah.
And Don't Stop Running had really kicked ass, and then we got a tour. I mean, I'm telling you all these different tours we did on that one. We did 3 weeks with Rush, which was a weird pairing, but
just old men out there.
It worked.
Tom Sawyer. That's like you're just like, oh man, that's great though.
But it worked out good. We played 2 nights at the Spectrum in Philadelphia. Sold out. And
let's talk about that era right there, because you play with Metallica, Scorpions. Is Yngwie on that one? Yngwie on the Day in the Green?
Yeah, he was. It was called Victory.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
For something Force or something like that.
Oh, Rising Force.
Yeah.
So the first band's Victory. Nobody even knows. Then it's Metallica, or Yngwie, Rising Force. Then Metallica. You guys, Scorpions. Is somebody else on that?
Rat.
That's right.
Yeah. And the score and Metallica had opened up for us 2 other times too.
Wow!
We played New Year's Eve at the Memorial Auditorium, I think it was, in Sacramento.
Yeah,
we headlined that, and this new band Metallica opened for us.
Yeah,
I got to tell you a little story about that, just a quickie.
Yeah.
As I was upstairs in the dressing room, and I wasn't hearing him right, and Phil comes up and goes, "Dave, you've got to come down here, man."
Yeah.
He goes, "These guys are a trip. They're like a garage band.
Yeah.
But the crowd is really getting into them."
Whoa.
So I because we never see any band open up for. I mean, we could have had Led Zeppelin reform and open
just
for
don't
us,
see them.
and they would have fucking booed them off the stage.
Oh.
Y&T, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was that kind of a band thing, it's kind of a dynamic. And the same thing happened when Twisted opened up for us in the Bay Area. They got bottles thrown at them, and they got booed, and they got people yelling Y&T in between their songs.
Yeah.
So, it was all this weird shit that was going down. So all of a sudden he goes, wow, the crowd's kind of digging them. But they're like a garage band.
It's like you guys with AC/DC.
Yeah.
And
so we're out there watching them, and I'm like, I don't get it.
Yeah. Because back then Hetfield sang weird too. He's like, hit the lights. He's like a weird thing, and it's really
strange,
dirty and unpolished.
It was, and the way they were on stage and the way that they interacted with each other, it was like they'd never played a live show before. They didn't know how to do it right or something.
Yeah.
They were really sloppy and weird.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it was raw. And it was what Metallica was known for, right?
Yeah.
And the crowd was kind of getting off on it. It was like, wow, interesting. So anyway, that was just an aside. But
I remember Day in the Green, and this to me, I call it the turning point, really, of that era. Because what is it? You think it's 85?
Yeah, 84 was the tour on that one, and 80.
So it's the summer, maybe.
85 was the one, the summer of Summertime Girls.
Right.
Yeah, that was 85.
This is what I remember. Metallica was slowly grassroots, building it like you guys.
Right.
And they were getting some things. They were getting great tours in Europe and opening and stuff. But they were just kind of the Stone heroes. You see them at the Stone, and they were like really building an outlaw, They're on the second record, which is Ride the Lightning. They play that day. And to me, it seemed like it was the day, it was the changing of the guard.
Right.
Because the entire fucking place went crazy at like 11 a.m. or noon.
Yeah.
They're tearing up the field, the baseball field. And I remember Bill Graham's like, stop tearing that shit up. Bill would go out there on his own. You goddamn best. But I remember, man, and you can see the footage on Cliff 'Em All or YouTube. They're playing For Whom the Bells Toll, and it's an absolute war out there. And I was like, oh, those are our guys. They made it,
exactly. Absolutely.
It had to be epic to play Day in the Green, right? Because it's so prestigious to me. Do you remember when you get the call, you're like, holy shit, because that's a huge show. That's like That's like Pink Pop or Reading, but in America.
Exactly.
And you're on with the Scorpions, who have Love It's first Sting record out. They're huge. The whole thing's a
huge.
scorpion with fucking legs. You got these huge bands on, and you're out there, and it's 65,000 people where Zeppelin played their last fucking show ever.
Oh, was that it?
Ever. 1977 right there.
Wow.
And you know, where bands were introduced to America, like AC/DC and Cheap Trick and Blue Oyster Cult really blew the place up, and Frank Marino, Mahogany Rush, and Aerosmith. So that had to be like, holy shit, you're 10 feet from where you started.
That's right.
You're 10 feet. You know, you could ride Bart to your house.
Well, it was a personal goal of ours, you know, and dream of Leonard and myself and Phil as well, because we're all from Oakland. The three of us were that. You know, and we had seen lots of gigs at the indoor Oakland Coliseum, just to play the Oakland Coliseum. That was just like, to us, we made it, man, if we played the Oakland Coliseum.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, speaking of Mahogany Rush, that very first show we played with Queen at Winterland was Queen, Mahogany Rush, Y&T.
Wow.
Yeah, yesterday and today.
Yeah. How great is Frank Marino, right?
Oh, awesome.
He's another guy. Yeah. Unbelievable. It's weird. When you look at those Day in the Greens, people don't understand. It holds 65,000. There's one where Edgar Winter headlines, and it's sold out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Frank Marino, Pat Travers, these guys played in 65,000 people.
I know.
And you think about that now, like, these are solo guitar guys, and you're going like, holy shit, man.
Exactly.
You know, that is how big the guitar was.
It was. Yeah.
When does it fall off? Like, I listen to you forever, and then of course I start playing music, and I'm out on the road, and you're just kind of out of sight and out of your mind. And I know what goes down with Leonard. It's over and over. We know he became a party animal, and he's a wild man, and it falls off.
Yeah.
But I don't really know when Joey disappears. Like, all of a sudden he's just gone.
Well, yeah, I mean, once we let Leonard go, and it was 1986,
right?
And that was a tough time to do that, you know, because we had just come off of the most popular tour we were on, because when Summertime Girls was out, we were on the Motley Crue tour.
Oh wow, Girls.
Yeah, so it was just the two of us. So all throughout the U.S., I mean, we were killing it. And then when we got off of that tour, we went out with Aerosmith, you know, and it was just nonstop,
like the Pump tour or something.
Yeah,
huge.
It was just great stuff, man. It was just great stuff. We were killing it. Everything was great, and so now we're like, man, we're now on the edge, and you know, Summertime Girls was in heavy rotation on MTV. The song was hit 46 on the charts. It was one station away from going top 40, and A&M pulled the funds right before that last station because they had a new Simple Minds album coming out or something like that, and they just didn't want to spend any more money on it. It was just madness. It was absolute. So anyway, so we're out playing with Aerosmith, and John Kolodner, the famous A&R guy that was with Geffen at the time.
Yeah.
He comes out to our show right when he knew that we had just gotten off of A&M while we were still on the road.
Right.
Because we told our manager, I said, if you can find that there's any interest whatsoever, then let's leave A&M. Because
you got a 3-record deal with A&M?
We had 5.
But there was like a loophole you could get off?
We could get out.
Okay.
Because we found out that they were not so interested in having a band like us on their label.
Okay.
At the end of the day. And so we're like, if you can get us out, because we're pissed, because we just gave them a great single, Summertime Girls, and we've got this next song we want to put out, you know, and they don't even want to put another song out.
What was going to be the next single?
I can't even remember right
Gotcha.
now. But it, you know, whatever it was just. Oh, and plus we were pissed that they didn't go all the way with it. We were the 10th most requested song on radio in the U.S.
That's horrible.
And one friggin' CHR station away from killing it.
Like, who does that? You do all the work and then you don't go across the finish line. That's like running the Boston Marathon, just going, I'm out.
Yeah, I know, it's stupid. Kolodner shows up and he's got this weird accent, right? And he goes, "Yeah, man, you guys." He goes, my niece could have broken Summertime Girls. Those A&M guys are idiots.
I love it.
Yeah, right.
I love it.
So he goes, no, we want you. So we're like, 1 week off of A&M.
Yeah.
And already he's like, I want you.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to do Summertime Girls. I want you to do what you were doing back when.
That's great.
And just get in your studio and write riffs and write rock and roll riffs and get back to the basics that you were doing,
And this guy had rebuilt Aerosmith.
Right.
And turned it into a massive machine.
Right. So we had all the right, thing going for us, and we're excited now. Okay. Plus, we're just come off of a great tour and amazing radio play and MTV play and everything, in front of all these people on these 2 tours. I mean, we're set up. We're set up for the next move to go up another notch. So we go back to rehearse, and Leonard won't show up because he's fucked up every night.
Wow.
And he'll show up 3 hours late or not show up at all.
Yeah.
Sometimes 4 hours late. And it was madness. He was not the same guy he was. He was his personality had
just
changed.
on a benders,
just completely gone. And so I just said, man, we got to make a change. I hate to do it.
Yeah,
we got to because otherwise what are we going to do, man? We can't do this. We're just gonna fall off the planet, man.
Yeah.
With this kind of thing going on. So we kick Leonard out of the band.
Yeah.
And we get
that's got to be heavy, right?
It was heavy. It was. Really
that's the guy you guys start that thing together.
Yeah.
And 80s are full blown cocaine.
Yeah.
And I always talk about cocaine. I did a lot of cocaine.
Right.
And everybody did. But some people, it would grab them and fucking shake them up. And there's a dark side of cocaine and there's a fun side of cocaine. Fun side is you're drinking, you're writing tunes, you're playing rock. The dark side is you go home and you keep doing coke. Yeah. That's a dark side.
Yeah. Well, he was 20 times the dark side.
Yeah.
He was, when he did something, he did it in full blown.
Yeah.
And he was really, really in bad shape because of it. He was owing people money. It had changed his personality. He couldn't play the drums the same way he was doing it because he was so fucked up all the time.
And he started getting really heavy.
Yeah.
So you'd see him, he looked like he was always gassed on those later era shows, you know?
So, we had to make a move. We made the move. We auditioned 33 guys at the rehearsal studio. They were
33.
They were
any guys we know?
Yeah, David Lauser, who was Sammy Hager's drummer.
Oh yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he came in. There's a couple other guys which I can't remember what their background was, but they were known for playing. One guy played, believe this or not, Under the Stage with Judas Priest.
Oh, what?
Yes.
Whoa, a dude played Under the Stage?
Under the drum riser.
Whoa!
They had like an 8-foot drum riser, and he played under the drum riser, and they let their original drummer play on this one tour supposedly, but he had all the mics that they were using out front or something. I don't know.
Wow, that is wild, right?
Some weird shit. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
oh man.
And we had Motley Crue's management that wanted
Doc McGee?
that wanted that guy to be in Y&T because we had just got off the road with him, and he realized how good the band was, and all those guys had a lot of respect for us, and they wanted the best. And he said, "Man, I got this guy," and he wanted him so bad that he actually came to the rehearsal studio with the guy when he showed up to do the audition. But he didn't cut it. He wasn't the right guy.
It's got to be hard to replace him because what people don't know, I talk about it over and over. I've had all the famous drummers on this show, all of them. And when you have a band which your songs go like this and this guy played the drums, as soon as you get another drummer, it's a completely different fucking feel.
It is.
And it can change the songs for better or worse.
Exactly.
And you're going like, whoa, this is weird.
Yeah,
right?
it is. It is. Just playing with any of those guys, was just a strange thing for us.
Yeah, and they're all pro. People don't understand. You can get 10 of the best guys, and they could come in, and then you'll be like, well, yeah, but man, it's Leonard. He had this way where he's...
Exactly.
It's like when Adler's at a GNR. When he's playing Welcome to the Jungle, it's got this swing to it.
Right.
So people learn the parts, but you got to learn the feel.
Exactly.
And he had this weird push-pull thing,
Yep, exactly. You're right on the money.
Yeah, drums are the fucking hardest.
It is. So we get a guy that's totally different than Leonard.
Yeah.
Jimmy DeGrasso. And Jimmy is, an amazing drummer. But he's nothing like Leonard's style.
Yeah.
So he comes in. But the good thing about and the one reason that we really liked him was that made the band sound like we were kicking ass like we did with Leonard.
Yeah.
These other drummers came in and they played the songs, but they just sat there kind of.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't have any sparkle, you know, or it just wasn't the right hit on it or something, you know. Jimmy was he was like Leonard, where he'd hit those drums hard, man.
Like a throttle.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But he was playing double bass drum, which is not what Leonard did.
Nope.
Leonard was known for playing a fast single bass.
Like Bonzo.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
people thought he was using a double bass pedal.
Exactly.
And then you slow it down. He could do like triple,
Exactly.
somehow with his fucking right foot, you know?
So we knew we were going to be in trouble no matter who we get.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And, you know, but at the end of the day, the thing that carried us through was the fact that he could play the old stuff faithfully, you know, at least enough to be rocking, you know, house. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, we were kicking ass. And the other thing is that we had just come off we were all the way going up. You know, we were on a full upswing.
Yeah.
So we better nail this one, man. It better be good because it's you know, we would be screwing our chance at one of the best times in our career to come out with something good. So we took our time and we wrote and everything.
No more outside writer?
No, it was just us.
Oh, because Kalogner now, he signed you to Geffen,
Yeah.
and this is your first record with Geffen,
right.
and he's like, go give me some Earthshaker.
Go give me some Earthshaker, right?
Yeah.
Black Tiger, whatever. And so we're writing and we come up with what we think is good enough stuff. And he comes down and he listens to the tunes and he's like, okay, we still need a few more. Keep going. And then we finally get it to a point where he's pretty confident. And he brings in this particular producer and everything. We do the record and we go out on the road. And now we're playing, you know, really cool shows. We're trying out our very first co-headline tour.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've always been the bridesmaid, you know. Now we're going to be the bride, you know, and we're going to check it out and we're going to see what happens. Fuck me, man. We did good business everywhere.
Who'd you go out with?
And we went out with the former guitar player from Kiss, Ace Frehley.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's Frehley's Comet. And, well, I guess he was called Frehley's Comet.
Yeah, that's
back
what it
then.
was,
I think
yeah.
it was. Or maybe it was just Ace
Anton
Frehley.
Fig.
Yeah, exactly. So we go out with him, and he headlines some shows like in New York and stuff like that. And we get to certain parts of the Midwest where we're big, like Chicago and stuff like that, and we headline.
Yeah.
And then we come to the West Coast, and we headline again. We played the Sacramento Arco Arena.
Wow.
Headlining.
That's incredible.
I mean, it was fucking awesome, man.
Yeah.
So, and we did the business. I mean, we didn't sell every place out, but we fucking did good business.
What's
man.
the single on this Geffen record?
And
It's the vampire on the cover, right?
Yeah.
What's
no.
that
That was the last record for A&M.
Oh,
that was Down for the Count.
Oh, yeah, okay. What's the record for Geffen?
It's Contagious.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So
Okay.
Contagious was the single.
Yep.
Yeah, and so you know it was a goofy video, and I never forget, man. We did this video. And we used the same people that did the Summertime Girls video. Well, it was a different thing, man. Summertime Girls, we could have done a kind of fun video like that with a bunch of hot-looking chicks on the beach.
Yeah, that's what the tune is.
Right. But really, for Contagious, it should have been a performance video with us on a stage and looking rock and doing our thing and the people going for it. It should have been like that.
Yeah, and they really seeing the Y&T.
Yeah.
Especially with Kalogner's vision
Exactly.
of Earthshaker, which is no bullshit.
Exactly.
Y&T is the AC/DC of America to me,
Right.
where they're just like, this is us.
Yeah.
Like Ramones, Y&T, that kind of thing, where this is us.
Right.
You know?
So we do this video, and we all gather together at Geffen Records.
Yeah.
And a guy that they now have stolen from A&M that is doing promotions for him, that remembers doing promotions for us at A&M, and we already knew the guy. You know, we'd been to his house before and stuff. He's there, and we're all watching the video, and it's kind of goofy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And he had us going through doing stupid stuff, and, you know, and I will never forget, man, the fucking video ends, and the promotion guy has this disgusted look on his face and turns around and walks out of the room.
Really?
Without saying a fucking thing. I knew we were in trouble.
Yeah. Like, you're like right there, you're like, we're fucked.
Yeah. So they release it. It's doing well. We're kicking ass on the tour, but they won't release a second single.
God, that's fucking crazy, right?
Because right when we released that record,
Yeah.
they just released their first record with Guns N' Roses.
Oh, shit. Here comes Dad.
And their new release of Whitesnake.
Oh, the big one. Still of the Night. Yeah.
So,
oh, my God.
So we're out on the road, and we're with the Geffen Reps, and, and Kalodner's like, we're going to be totally different than A&M. We're really going to take care of you in the States. Yeah. Right? And the Geffen Reps are like, actually, you're selling pretty good. But where you're selling 1,000 in this particular market in Iowa, or whatever, you're selling 1,000 records a week. Appetite, Appetite's selling like 50,000, and
Whitesnake.
and Whitesnake's selling 10,000 a week.
Oh man!
And so
yeah, but to me it's like you got 50, you got 10, and then you got 1,000. You know what I mean? It's better than not having 1,000.
Oh, I know. But at the end of the day, that was kind of what we were up against.
Yeah.
And so Kalodner was all apologetic and everything. He goes, "I'm sorry. Let's do it again, and we'll change it up this time." So we spend forever to write the 10 record, and before we get into that, we're having similar problems that we had with Leonard.
Yeah.
With Joey.
Now is Joey partying?
Joey was always partying, but he was never as bad as Leonard. He took over when Leonard did.
Wow.
He went full-blown cocaine madness.
Wow.
Yeah.
Even, that's crazy. Even after he sees one guy split.
Yep.
And are these guys, when you're with a band, you realize guys' demons over a 5-10 year period.
Right.
Are they demons they had from as young people that just start coming out, or are they just like rock and roll blur? Like, it's party. This is how rock and roll is.
I think the rock and roll thing kind of took over with them.
Yeah, because the 80s, I mean, it was hot to do heroin. Yeah. You got Guns N' Roses. They're talking about street stuff. And you got junkies in the band. So a little cocaine isn't that bad. At least I'm not doing dope.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But I think with Joey was always the kind of guy that lived the rock star life in his head, and was so into that, and he had every Cream magazine and every Circus magazine, and he would take those pictures out of there and stick them up on his wall before we even made it, or did anything, right? And while we were doing it, he was a groupie in a group. That's what we called him.
He had all your shit. Like your memorabilia from magazines and stuff on the walls?
Not just ours. Everybody.
Wow.
Every band.
Kind of like a man-child.
He was, I
met guys like that where they're just kind of like Joey Ramone or something. You're just like, well, this guy's about 17.
Well, he was such a rock fan that he never ever lost that thing about still being a rock fan for every rock band that was out there.
Yeah.
And he was just, he wanted to be like that. So I think that in his mind, he figured, well, rock and roll in the 80s, man, is about doing coke, man, and being wild and crazy and fucking every chick you can and so on and so forth, which is what happened, of course.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he wanted to live it hard and fast. And, of course, his buddy was the buddy that was the coke dealer that
Still around.
Still around.
Never busted.
No.
Unbelievable, right?
Yeah,
Some guys are just like, I sell coke. That's what I do.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if this guy was selling coke at that time anymore. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
Because every fan of Y&T would have given him a fucking gram every night or an 8-ball or whatever. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
And so, we're out there, and again, the same thing is happening. Not only is he fucked up, but he's able to play the shows fine, but he's having all kinds of medical issues too. He's having these seizures and stuff, and
like coke seizures.
Coke seizures.
Oh yeah, I've seen those.
Oh yeah, and
like Adler style.
Yeah, man, really bad. And we're like, dude, man, you could lose your life, man.
Yeah, that's crazy, right?
That's crazy.
I have one seizure, I'm fucking out.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not partying anymore.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that was going on, and his personality was changing, and he was getting a little arrogant, and he was getting kind of weird to the fans and stuff like that. And we're like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
So basically, we did the same thing that we did with Leonard, and we said, hey, man, we'll pay for a 12-step program.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't have a fucking problem.
Wow.
So there we go. Next.
Yeah, 20 seasons. Where'd that guy go? Just disappear?
Disappeared.
They get into that thing, too, when you get go. Any guy they can grab, they fucking burned me. That thing, it gets dark, and it's like, dude, man, you never did anything again, Like if they got clean and got their head together, it's like you could come back.
Well, on his plus side of Joey's, he had a couple of years where we would hear things. I mean, I didn't see him, but we would hear all kinds of weird shit that was going down. Again, with all based off of his drug thing.
Yeah.
And it eventually got so bad that I think his nose collapsed.
Whoa.
And he had some problems like a tumor in his head that needed to be operated on. So once he got that operation, I think it all just finally came to him. Like, wow.
Yeah.
I'm close to dying here. I mean, they reconstructed his nose. They fixed the tumor in his head. It wasn't a malignant tumor.
Right.
And he just, his sister brought him back to health, at her house. And according to what we understood, until we ended up finally seeing him later, and knowing everything that happened, he straightened his act up.
Oh,
he
great.
completely straightened up, and he was on a health kick, and he's out there walking every day, and he still does.
Wow.
And but he was done.
Yeah.
I'm done with rock and roll. I can't go back to that.
Well, yeah, I mean, man, that's a lot of people rock and roll. I compare it to Vietnam.
Yeah.
They get out there. Of course, you're not fighting wars. I'm not trying to. People get on that. How could you compare it to Vietnam?
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, you see stuff that is completely not real. A rock band is not real. You're in a fucking bus, which I call a submarine, and you're cruising around the world, and you don't even know what's going on the outside. It's just cocaine, chicks, and rock.
Exactly.
And it can fuck you up, man. It could eat you alive.
And I think from his standpoint, he probably thought, I can't do this because if I do this again, I could get right back into it.
Which I respect him for that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so in 2000, so anyway, we replace him and we do the 10 record. And the 10 record was going to be our, shining glory out of Geffen because they were going to finally do the right thing by us. Well, of course, there was too much traffic again.
Yeah.
But still, I told the guys before the thing even came out, and we finally did the right video. We did a great video for Don't Be Afraid of the Dark.
Yeah.
And never got played.
Wow, fuck.
So, I mean, if they played it on MTV, maybe it got played, 1% of the time, or whatever.
Yeah.
So I told the guys going in, I go, you know what, man? We're in this weird time frame where we just got through on the Contagious record and did our first headline U.S. tour, co-headline tour. And we did the business.
Yeah.
I mean, we are legitimate, happening. But at the same time, we couldn't get arrested in radio after a while because they would, hire these independent promoters and stuff to go, try to get our next single out there. And we'd be getting a bunch of stuff back, hearing back stuff like, oh, those guys again, they're still around.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, really? From the guys in radio.
Yeah, people think longevity's bad. Isn't that weird?
It was a weird thing. It was all of a sudden it was working against us to have longevity. So
it's like, aren't they supposed to be dead? And then we just play them years later. That's how it is, right? They just look at it as like, instead of like, fuck, these guys are great. They've been around forever. They're just like, not those guys again.
Exactly.
It's like, those guys again. They got great fucking songs.
So it felt like everything we were fighting more than the normal fight to get there. Now we're fighting, a double fight.
Yep.
So I just said, you know what, man, maybe this is just not our thing anymore. Maybe we should just, let's give this the best that we can. And if Geffen does not go and do us proud and we don't get the tour and nothing happens, let's just, if they don't release single number 2 and nothing goes on, let's just say that we'll move on and do something else.
Yeah.
Well, sure enough, we go out there. We're not getting much of a tour date thing going on.
Yeah.
They released Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. It's doing pretty good. And we go, man, you got to release the second single, man. You got to release the second single, which was, I can't remember what it was going to be. And they go, no, we're not going to release second single. Your record's done.
Wow.
2 months after it was released, they were already done with it. They were washed their hands.
Oh.
So I just said, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're gonna do a farewell tour in the West Coast so that we don't have to worry about making this big long thing and all this kind of stuff. Let's just do like 10 shows.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for being our fans, and we're out of here.
Yeah.
So I get home one night and before the tour starts, and somebody leaves a message on my answering machine. Remember those answering?
Yeah.
And it says something like, in a weird voice, you break up the band and I will shoot you before your last show.
Whoa.
On stage.
A prank call?
Yeah.
Whoa.
So we thought, okay, now who is this? Right?
Yeah.
Is this like somebody that's friends of Leonard or Joey that are like,
one of those coat demons.
Here's
his number. Give him a call right now.
Because I'm sure that they've been talking us down for the last many years. Those fuckers, they kicked me out, whatever, right? Or maybe it's a friend playing a joke on us.
Yeah,
right?
whatever.
So I ask everybody that I know, come on, man, you got to just tell me.
Yeah, because this is scary
Was it you?
shit.
Because this is kind of scary.
Yeah.
And he said, no, man, it wasn't us. And so I called the Santa Clara Police Department, and I said, tell me what you guys think. Do you think this is credible? And they listened to it, and they brought their fucking guy out, and he goes, I would go as this as being a credible threat.
Wow.
So we had our manager buy a fucking one of those, what are they? The wands, where you're checking people as they come in.
Oh, yeah, the metal detectors.
Metal detector,
yeah.
right.
You're wanding people like a hip-hop show.
We're wanding people to come into the show. So now we're getting down to the last two shows, which are both at the same place, the cabaret place in San Jose.
Oh, yeah, that place.
And we put in 1,000 people into that place, which is amazing. I don't know how they shoehorn that many people in there.
Yeah.
So we have the 30th of December and the 31st of December. We're playing New Year's Eve and the night before New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
2 shows, both sold out. Our final 2 goodbye shows. We bring in a major studio
we got to record it.
Recording studio,
mobile unit.
A mobile unit, and they're going to record the last 2 shows, and we're going to release the last record on some other label that had said, "Hey, Geffen doesn't want you anymore. Nobody else wants you. Well, we'll take you." And it was Metal Blade Records.
Yeah,
right.
Brian Slagle. I saw him 2 nights ago.
Right.
Yeah.
And Brian said that that record still is one of the best-selling records that they ever had on their label.
Yeah, that's right.
So anyway, it's Yesterday and a Day Live is what we ended up calling it. So we do that, and the last 2 shows, I'm thinking half the time while I'm on stage,
fucking crazy,
somebody's going to fucking shoot me in the head tonight.
Yeah.
It's just going to happen. I'm going to be in the middle of a solo or something, and I'm not going to know anything else. I'm done.
Yeah, it's just over. Black Tiger.
There, boom, there you go. Right.
Man, fucking brutal, right? That sucks. You're up there thinking that.
Just craziness, man. But anyway, we got through the show. Nothing happened.
Uh-oh. Hold on a minute. No, you're not making me late. This is one of my favorite interviews ever. I'm like thinking, shit, we need part 2. I haven't even got to Hearing Aid or playing with fucking Sammy on Montrose.
Jesus Christ.
So you do the record.
They don't go for the second single. We just say, okay, we'll do these 10 shows or however many it was, and it'll be our farewell tour. And we do the shows. We make the live record, and everybody goes off in our separate ways. We don't talk to each other, and I have this brilliant idea. Hey, I know. I'm gonna construct a recording studio.
Yeah.
In my house, so that whatever my project is next, whatever band it is, or if I'm going to do my own thing, I'll have my own thing, and I won't have to pay too much money, at a regular.
Yeah, you can just work on your own.
Right, I can work on my stuff.
Did you ever make money?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just asking because we're going over the years, and it's like
about right after Mean Streak record, right about that time. I think it was right around the time when I got married, right during when we were making the In Rock We Trust record,
right
in '84. We had gone finally into the black in our publishing.
Wow.
Yeah, we were still in the red for the record sales.
Making the records
because the first record we made, Earthshaker, we hadn't paid that off, and that got added now to the budget for Black Tiger.
It's so
hadn't
fucking
paid
hard.
that, and so those 2 went to the next one, and then 3 went to the next one.
That's fucking disgusting, right?
So,
just the mob mentality of
exactly.
record business, man.
Yeah. So I'm making money now in publishing.
So you make you do a recording studio in your house, and you do a blues record.
Yeah. But before that happens, I'm making the recording studio, and it's a year after the date after we played our New Year's Eve show, and our manager calls up and goes, "Hey guys, what do you think about banding together again and playing another New Year's Eve show 1 year later?
Oh, yeah.
You won't be, making the band again. It's not the band getting back together. It's just, just play,
Yeah.
And, of course, we're all like, fuck, yeah, man. We haven't played any music for a year. We've been doing it 17 years nonstop.
Yeah.
So we did it.
Where was it at?
It was same place. Same place.
Right there.
Cabaret Club.
Yeah. And you guys would just do that like once a year,
we
right?
We just did it once a year, 2 more years in a row.
Yeah.
That year and the next year. And then another year goes by, and I'm already written most of my what's going to be a solo record on the blues side.
Meniketti.
On the blues side, it was called.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Meniketti on the blues side, yeah. But it hadn't been done yet. So, our manager goes, "Come on, man! It's 3 years later. Why don't you guys get together and play it? Let's do a string of shows in the Bay Area."
Yeah.
So, all right, well, let's do it. So we do a string of shows, and we're all looking at each other, going, "Why are we not playing?"
Yeah, it's crazy.
The band is so friggin' good right now, and and we've got all this amazing amount of great material that we can play, and the fans are still there for us. They're still coming out.
Hell yeah!
Why don't we play some shows? So then he books the Santa Clara fairgrounds, and 11,000 people show up.
Whoa!
And it's fucking awesome, man.
11,000!
Yeah.
You can't fucking turn your back on that.
No, man.
Because it's like no matter what you do solo, you don't have 11,000 guys.
No.
Solo, it's probably maybe 400,
At the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're doing like maybe Mill Valley or something.
Exactly.
But, you know what I mean? But
You're right on the money,
yeah.
man.
Let's talk, because I do got to go.
Yeah.
There's three things I want to cover. First, we lost Phil. That
Yes.
was insane, man.
Yeah.
He smoked. I remember was it lung cancer?
It was lung cancer.
He smoked the entire time I saw him on stage the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
But man, did he look cool as fuck,
He looked
right?
cool, man.
He was one of the best ever. That guy was like 20 feet tall.
I know, man.
The way he leaned back, he just had the smoke dangling.
yeah,
he was Jimmy Page on bass.
He was.
Right?
He was. Exactly right, man.
God, it was
He had this certain thing about his stage persona was just like the coolest rock star ever.
He really was, man. He really was.
Yeah.
That's horrible. I wanted to talk two things. You did the hearing aid, and it's amazing when you look at that era. Hearing aid was the heavy metal version of We Are the World.
Exactly.
And I refired it up today, and you sing besides Dio coming on going, yeah,
right.
You come on, and you sing the first fucking line.
That's right.
And everyone had to be like, who's that guy? I mean, we knew and everything.
Right,
But, man,
right.
that is so cool. And you had all the great lines. It's like you, then it goes Rob Halford, then Dio, then it goes Kevin DeBro, then you again.
That's funny, man, because Rob, I was the first guy to sing lead on it.
Yeah.
Because we did the whole shout thing with all the guys, all singing the chorus the night before, and some guys did some solos and stuff also while all this stuff was going. It was madness.
Yeah.
But the next day, of course, after every rock star you could ever imagine was in a room together,
insane,
having fun.
Good thing a bomb didn't go off
No
there, man.
shit,
There
man.
would be no rock instantly. Instantly, the rock would be over. Because if you look at that, you're like, holy shit, they're all there.
And so, yeah, exactly.
Everyone's rich in the video at the time.
Awesome.
You're looking at like, look at all those rich guys. They're like, I'm funny now. They're all happy.
That's right,
That's
man. Everybody
great.
was happy.
That's dope, man.
So it was a good thing. And then, like I said, the next morning, you couldn't see a one of them, because 9 o'clock in the morning was the call for me to come to the recording studio, and at A&M by just some strange chance.
Yep.
And I was the first guy that was going to do his track,
Yep.
and so you sing the whole thing from top to bottom.
Yeah. And then they pick what
they pick what they want. Right. And Ronnie Dio's in there watching me and directing me.
Unbelievable.
And, of course, we had just gotten off of playing with him the year before on tour for the Mean Streak record tour. And so, we knew each other, but, still there was this, he was up here.
Yeah, he's the hierarchy, man. That guy's the king singer.
He's the king. Yeah, and I'm just a pawn walking in, doing his thing. And so, I do my thing, somewhere in the night when you're feeling the cold.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it's in my wheelhouse, man. I got this.
Dude, you were so good on it. I mean, Ronnie's got to be going like, oh, this guy, me and Rob are the only singers in this fucking room. He is. You know what I mean? Like but
still, it was morning, number one.
Yep.
And it was a brand new song that I'd never heard the lyrics. I've never seen the lyrics before.
Yeah.
Because we were only doing the choruses over and over. We didn't have the whole thing that we were hearing. And I didn't know what his melodies were. So, there was a little bit of anxiousness that was going on in my brain. And I sang it down one time, and then I may have done one, I don't even remember, but I remember, we took a verse at a time. And, after I was done with the first verse, I thought, oh man, I could do that better. And Ronnie goes, that's awesome, Dave.
Yeah.
We're keeping it.
Yeah.
And I go, all right.
Yeah.
So we did the whole thing, and then at the end of it, he goes, now I want you, on the outro, I want you to just do some whoa-whoas and some yeahs or whatever, just do some little scats.
Some rock riffing.
Right. And so he used some of those as well of mine. But it was just really, for me, it was just an amazing time, number one, because the night before, all hanging with all of these guys that had been touring throughout the country and the world for the last 5 or 6 or 8 years or better. Yep. And some of these guys I knew only too well because we'd all known each other because we either were friends of each other from touring together or they were fans or we were fans. It didn't matter. Yep. We were just like one big, get together. And but the other thing is that a lot of these guys I didn't know. I had never met some of these guys.
That's great,
before,
right? So then they're like, oh, fuck yeah. And it's like just a full bonding.
Yeah.
All right, we got to get out of here.
Yeah, I know.
No, but let me tell you something. What a fucking great day for me, man. So cool to have you. It's just insane. Thanks, man. I love your band, and I can't believe when I was a kid, I can't even imagine one day I'll be interviewing him and then he'll come see me do comedy. You're not thinking that shit, you know what I mean?
No,
I'm in the front, I mean, I bet if there's bootleg footage, you just see me in the front always, Hilarious.
That's funny,
all right, let's get out of here. Give me the intro to Rescue Me.
Okay. I was down, I was barely making it. She was gone and I couldn't take it. I was looking for a new way of thinking. When I go to sleep, I pray I wouldn't wake up. Well, I want you to rescue me.
Yeah, man.
I'm not warmed up, sorry.
Man, that's so good, dude. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much, man. Fantastic. Yeah. I love you, man. Thank you so much. Wow, man.
To say this was an interview I'll never forget.
Wow.
I've never talked this much about so in-depth all the way through my career, man, with somebody that really knew what was going on.
Wow.
Number one, just for us, but you also understand all the ins and outs of being in the backside of not understanding what it's like to be a musician and try to do that for a living.
Yeah.
I mean, not many people know that.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I love you, dude, and I want to have you on again, man.
Thanks,
next year or whatever. Let's do a part 2.
I want a fucking
I'll give it all to you. I'll give it all to you.
Thanks, man.
There he is, man. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Cheers.